Chapter 1. Why veils of sheer fabric fluttered as rain pelted the banana trees. Within the west wing of the Guangyang Marquis residence, the floor was strewn with the garments and ornaments of a lady, while a trace of dragon's saliva mingled with the intoxicating scent of carnal pleasure wafted from a gilded beast-shaped incense burner. Shun Luan awoke upon a Wangwali bed, her head pounding mercilessly, her body aching as though trampled by a carriage. Today marked the return banquet of her intimate friend, the legitimate daughter of the Guangyang Marquis, Qin Shu, a celebration she attended with her husband, Chao Jin. During the festivities, under Chao Jin's earnest persuasion, she indulged in several cups of fruit wine. Soon succumbing to an unbearable drowsiness, the subsequent events blurred in her memory. She vaguely recalled being escorted to a chamber and hearing the sound of a door being locked, before being unceremoniously pushed onto the Wangwali bed in a state of stupor. In her dazed state, a figure suddenly emerged from behind the screen, approaching her. The room was dimly lit, preventing Shen Luan from discerning the visage of the person. Yet she sensed a towering presence that exuded an oppressive aura and an unsettling familiarity. She held her breath, paralyzed with trepidation as an ominous premonition unfurled within her. The figure was clad in resplendent scarlet official robes, the insignia on his chest vividly depicting a jade qilin treading upon clouds. A qilin signified a first-rank military general. Shen Luan's mind erupted in chaos. Chao Jin was merely a third-rank minister, adorned with a peacock on his attire. Suddenly, a cacophony of shouts erupted from outside, accompanied by the sound of hurried footsteps drawing near. Before she could grasp the man's identity, the door was forcefully thrust open. "Qin Gu, you disregard the principles of governance and dare to commit such bestial acts against my wife." Shen Luan abruptly lifted her gaze, the figure's features becoming starkly illuminated by the light from outside. How could it be him? Every drop of blood within Shen Luan felt as though it were igniting, a chill of dread coiling deep within her bones. Chao Jin's countenance darkened as he stepped forward, yanking her from the bed. Shen Luan stumbled into his embrace, the quilt tumbling down over her head, concealing her pallid visage. Derisive jeers seeped through the fabric of the quilt, and overwhelmed, she succumbed to unconsciousness. In the east courtyard of the minister's residence, at Tongli Pavilion, Shen Luan sat vacantly upon a bed, her gaze unfocused. Recently, her health had been in decline, prompting her maid to summon the household physician, only to discover that she was with child. Chao Jin had been preoccupied with official duties, and they had not shared a bed in 6 months. The vivid memories of her entanglement with that man from over a month ago flooded her mind. She clutched her face in anguish. She was carrying Qin Guest's child. "Is the master here?" "The madam has awoken. She is inside." A maid's voice floated in from outside. The door creaked open. Chao Jin stepped around the screen into the inner chamber, a blue medicinal bowl cradled in his hands. Shen Luan raised her eyes, taking in the sight of Chao Jin clad in a resplendent red brocade robe, his demeanor exuding an air of authority, entirely devoid of the poverty that once marked him. She had been wed to Chao Jin for 3 years. After an unfortunate incident during their courtship, she was left with a long scar stretching from her brow to her cheek, transitioning from a figure of admiration to one of neglect. Only Chao Jin had relentlessly pursued her, his sincerity undeniable. Thus, despite the disparity in their family backgrounds, Shen Luan, moved by his devotion, chose to marry him. Once married, she had devoted herself to repaying his kindness, managing household affairs, and overseeing business matters, dedicating all her time and energy to this man. But what had she received in return? In his quest to undermine the third prince's rival, Qin Gu, he had callously used his own wife as bait, administering drugs to ensnare them. She parted her cracked lips, her voice breaking as she implored, "Why?" Chao Jin, holding the medicinal broth, delicately maneuvered a spoon made of celadone, stirring it slowly. "Luan, this matter is of utmost importance to me. Qin Gu is meticulous and guarded towards all, yet he remains unguarded with you. Is this not a divine opportunity bestowed upon me?"
Chapter 2. It should have been foreseen. Chao Jin's eyes sparkled with a hint of triumph. He had not anticipated such resounding success. Now, the memorials to impeach Qin Gu fell like the incessant drizzle outside, unrelenting in their persistence. Even if His Majesty held him in high regard, he could not escape the weight of public opinion, which necessitated his suspension and investigation. Have you not always wished for me to achieve greatness? The third prince has hinted to me on numerous occasions that if I succeed, he would henceforth place his trust in me. Once his grand ambitions come to fruition, I shall be hailed as a founding hero. My name etched in history. Ailwan, are you not pleased? Shen Luan felt a chilling wave of dread wash over her, her delicate teeth biting into her lip until it bled. Chao Jian raised his hand, tenderly wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth, his gentleness almost overwhelming. Ailwan, fear not. Even if you have engaged in unspeakable acts with him, I shall not despise you. His fingers trailed upwards, brushing against the ghastly scar on Shen Luan's face, as if to convey that while others might scorn your imperfections, I shall continue to cherish you as before. But not this abomination. His gaze darkened abruptly, and before Shen Luan could react, he seized her mouth, forcing a bitter concoction down her throat, causing her to cough violently. The pain of losing a child can be intense, but do not fear, for I shall remain by your side. Ignoring Shen Luan's struggles, he pulled her into an embrace. Do you know, from the moment I first laid eyes on you, I believed you were meant to be mine. Yet, how could a mere Hanlin editor ever deserve you? He sighed. Fortunately, you bear this scar, which led the Shao family to withdraw their proposal, granting me the chance to possess you. Before Shen Luan could ponder the depths of his words, a searing pain shot through her abdomen, a relentless ache spreading throughout her limbs, followed by a warm rush that stained her pale dress. Her child. Chao Jian observed the blood with a slow smile, tightening his hold on Shen Luan. Ailwan, do not be afraid, I will always be here for you. Overwhelmed with fury, Shen Luan propped herself up and desperately pushed the devil away. Get away, you mad man! In that moment, a stream of blood erupted from her mouth, her entire being collapsing like a wilting flower. She fell onto the bed, convulsing, her hair a wild tangle mingling with the blood she had just expelled. She closed her eyes, a bitter smile escaping her lips. She should have foreseen it. With Chao Jin's grand scheme accomplished, what need had he for her? Surely, he intended to bestow upon her a cup of poison. Chao Jin, promoted and enriched, while leaving his wife to die. He truly had a cunning mind. Chao Jin, in a flurry, attempted to lift her, calling out, Ailwan, Ailwan. It wasn't me. Please, don't die. Don't die. Someone, summon the physician, quickly. Yet, after Shen Luan's demise, she did not vanish. Instead, she hovered in the air. Observing Chao Jin's despair as he cradled her lifeless body, it struck her as amusing. The one who had plotted her downfall was now feigning profound sorrow. Was he not weary? Chao Jin arranged an elaborate funeral for Shen Luan, his grief-stricken visage inviting sympathy from all. Shen Luan felt a twinge of annoyance. What was she to do here? Bound to remain within 5 steps of her corpse. She gazed into the coffin at her own form. The pallor of her face rendered the scar all the more grotesque, a ghastly sight, twisted and contorted like a centipede, repulsive to behold, bored and restless. Shen Luan drifted aimlessly, and as night fell, the lack of visitors for her memorial deepened her resentment. She had died wrongfully. Why could she not return as a vengeful spirit? The flickering lights in the morning hall caught her attention as a figure clad in dark garments entered. Upon seeing him, Chao Jin's eyes widened in shock, and he rushed forward, raising his fist at the intruder. Qin Gu effortlessly intercepted, casually waving him aside. Chao Jin stumbled, almost losing his footing. The hall was devoid of others. And with bloodshot eyes, Chao Jin glared furiously. How dare you show your face here? The emperor has not executed you. Qin Ji's gaze was frigid. The truth of the matter is known to you. Chao Jin, this time, I underestimated you, not foreseeing that you would even scheme against your own wife. Humph, Chao Jin retorted, unwilling to cower before Qin Gu. A great achiever does not concern himself with trifles. Ailwan loves me wholeheartedly. She would naturally wish to see me succeed. Do you think you deserve such affection? Qin Ji's demeanor darkened. You believe no one knows how you acquired this marriage? The world is not blind. Shen Luan's mind erupted in chaos, her eyes wide with disbelief. What did Qinggu mean? What was he implying? Chao Jin's fists clenched tightly, and Shen Luan could see the concealed panic beneath his anger. Qin Ji's cold laughter echoed. Did you think your schemes were seamless? That no one would care for Shen Luan, and thus your deceit would remain undiscovered? You colluded with Shen Yu to mar Shen Luan's reputation and visage, leaving her with no choice but to marry you. Did you truly believe that no one would ever find out? A metallic taste filled Shen Luan's mouth, the confines of her spectral form nearly suffocating her. The truth struck her like a bolt of lightning. Shen Yu? Chao Jin with Shen Yu, the sister she had once cherished, the only one she believed understood her plight. Was it they who had caused the scar that had haunted her for half her life? Shen Luan's vision blurred with rage, while Chao Jin's expression darkened. What proof do you have of this? Qinggu did not respond. Instead, he slowly drew his sword from his waist. What do you intend to do? Someone, help! In a flash, the blade glimmered, and Chao Jin's terrified voice faltered. Blood splattered across the white fabric hanging in the morning hall as Chao Jin's knees were severed, leaving him nearly unconscious from the pain. The sudden turn of events jolted Shen Luan's awareness back. Qinggu was, blame yourself for choosing poorly. She is not someone you can easily manipulate. Qinggu advanced toward Chao Jin, sword in hand. Desperate, Chao Jin crawled forward, seeking escape. Yet, the vast estate remained eerily quiet despite the commotion. What had Qinggu done? Do you think your rise to power has been effortless, if not for her being? Chao Jin tilted his head, desperately seeking clarity in his final moments. With a swift thrust, the light in Chao Jin's eyes dimmed. Qinggu withdrew the sword from his heart, droplets of blood cascading from the blade. But you do not deserve to know. Qinggu cleaned the sword with a cloth, sheathing it without casting a glance at Chao Jin's corpse, striding back toward the morning hall, nearly face to face with the still stunned Shen Luan. Coming to her senses, she hastily stepped aside, only to find a softness and regret reflected on Qin Ji's visage. I apologize for soiling your morning hall. He approached the coffin, gently placing a golden phoenix hairpin in her hair. I have longed to adorn you with this, for many years, if there is an afterlife. I hope you will see clearly and not fall prey to such petty individuals again. If there is an afterlife, I hope you might grant me another chance. Shen Luan stood frozen, gazing at Qinggu in astonishment. What was he saying? She had always believed his kindness stemmed from his friendship with Qin Shu, but now, as she watched him close the coffin lid, a powerful force suddenly enveloped her, pulling her into an abyss of darkness. Chapter 4. Not hell. The pungent scent of medicine mingled with the dampness of rain. Shen Luan struggled to awaken, abruptly opening her eyes. Above her, a canopy embroidered with yellow plum blossoms obscured her surroundings, leaving her momentarily disoriented. Miss, you are awake. A frantic voice pierced her ears. Shen Luan turned her head with great effort, her eyes widening in shock. It was Ziyin. But how could it be Ziyin? Ziyin had been her maid of honor, a sister in spirit, until the tragic incident that had claimed her life in the pool of the minister's residence. Miss, what ails you? Are you unwell? Please do not cry. Ziyin, flustered, gently wiped the moisture from the corners of Shen Luan's eyes with a handkerchief. I told you that the fourth miss should not take medicine casually. What if it harms your health? Shen Luan propped herself up, surveying the interior of the room adorned with a carved wooden screen depicting plum blossoms and koi vying for spring, a Persian-imported emerald-hued incense burner, and a gilded dressing table inlaid with a full-length Western mirror. Shen Luan's breath quickened. This was the Shan residence, the very place where she had lived prior to marrying Chao Jin. Orphaned at a young age, she had been raised by her stepmother, Jian Shi, alongside her half-brother, Shun Wanxiao. Jian Shi hailed from the wealthiest family in Jiangnan, reveling in opulence, and every item in this room had been meticulously chosen by her. Unique and irreplaceable, she could never be mistaken. Gripping Ziyin's hand tightly, the warmth and softness of the touch sent a jolt through her heart. It was real. She was alive. She had not descended into hell to reunite with Ziyin. The mirror. Miss, what did you say? Bring me the mirror. Startled by the emotion in Shen Luan's eyes, Ziyin hurried to fetch the round mirror from the dressing table. Shen Luan's fingertips trembled slightly as she lifted the mirror before her. The flawless, delicate visage reflected back was so unfamiliar that she almost could not recognize it. She truly had returned. The mirror slipped from Shen Luan's grasp onto the brocade quilt, and tears surged forth from her eyes. A silent outpouring, as if she sought to expel all the loathing and regret from her very being. She was back. Xian, frightened by Shen Luan's sudden display, stood pale beside the bed, scarcely daring to breathe. Yet soon, the young lady regained her composure, taking a handkerchief to carefully wipe away the tear stains. Although her eyes still bore a faint redness, Xian sensed that Shen Luan had changed somewhat from her former self. "What was that remedy you mentioned?" Shen Luan toyed with a handkerchief embroidered with bamboo, leaning against the headboard, her voice betraying no fluctuation. Xian immediately responded, "Miss, have you forgotten? The noble ladies in the palace are hosting a banquet, and you, not wishing to attend, had forth misobtained a prescription from somewhere." Shen Luan's long-sealed memories slowly began to unfurl. Yes, there was indeed such a matter. Each year, during this time, the noble ladies of the palace would hold a flower appreciation banquet, inviting eligible young ladies to enter the palace. If favored by the empresses, it was not impossible for them to ascend to the status of a prince's consort. Shen Luan recalled attending last year's banquet, but due to her naturally timid and sensitive disposition, she had felt utterly out of place amidst the blooming flowers, and upon overhearing whispers regarding her birth mother being a courtesan from the department of song, she had wept openly at the banquet, nearly incurring the wrath of the noble ladies. This time, the Shen family had again secured 3 invitations, typically allotted to the legitimate daughters of the third branch. One each, however, Shen Luan, recalling the previous incident, had no desire to attend. Thus, Shen Yu had somehow procured a prescription for her, advising her to feign illness in order to take Shen Luan's place at the flower banquet. Chapter 5. Heaven's eyes. Shen Luan's hand suddenly contracted, and the slender bamboo she had been holding was instantly distorted. "What a considerate little sister I have," she mused softly, a smile gracing her lips. Xian hesitated to speak, but Shen Luan caught her glance and smiled back, then turned to see another maid entering. Yu Ji, more charming than Xian, donned a pale green garment that accentuated her snow-white complexion, her hair adorned with a butterfly-themed hairpin gifted by Shen Luan. "Miss," Yu Ji greeted, bending slightly, placing the tray down, and bringing a small bowl closer to the bed, lowering her voice. "Drink this while it's warm. Fourth Miss says this is a normal reaction. After taking this dose, no one will suspect you're feigning illness." The small bowl contained a dark, bitter concoction. Shen Luan leaned against her pillow, lost in thought. Indeed, after years of trials, she pondered how she had ever believed that Shan Yu's actions were genuinely for her benefit. "Leave it. I do not wish to drink." Yu Ji's eyes widened. "Miss, the palace banquet is in 3 days. If you refuse to drink, you will have no choice but to enter the palace. You know how you dislike going there." "Indeed, I dislike it, but I despise drinking this more." With a swift motion, Shen Luan knocked the small bowl to the floor, the bitter liquid splattering everywhere. She raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "How careless, Xian. Go fetch me a bowl of bird's nest soup from the kitchen. Yu Ji can tidy this up herself. She is always capable." Xian paused her cleaning, bowed, and exited. Yu Ji, taken aback, crouched down to clean up the mess, the pungent aroma of the spilled medicine assaulting her senses, forcing her to hold her breath. Shen Luan remained seated, her gaze fixed on the top of Yu Ji's head. Before her marriage, Yu Ji had been taken away by Shen Yu. She had been her chief maid, meant to accompany her as part of her dowry. However, circumstances had been rushed, and Shen Luan had no time to contemplate. In retrospect, her fondness for Shen Yu had deeply taken root, nurtured by Yu Ji's subtle influences over the years. "Miss, it's all cleaned up." Yu Ji, with sticky hands, was eager to wash them. Shen Luan glanced at the floor, covering her nose with her handkerchief. "The stench is unbearable. Clean it with rose water, and I wish to smell nothing of it. Then I shall let the others in. You shall do it yourself." Shen Luan offered a warm smile to Yu Ji. "In my room. I trust only you to tidy up." Yu Ji immediately displayed her loyalty, taking the small bowl and exiting. Shen Luan's smile faded as she donned her shoes, stepping down from the bed to the table, where she touched the warm teapot, pouring tea into a sky-blue cup. She sipped delicately. Heaven has eyes, she thought, grateful that she, Shen Luan, had not perished unjustly but was given a chance at rebirth. She needed to contemplate how to ensure that those who had wronged her would pay in kind. One by one. "Miss, why have you gotten out of bed?" Xian re-entered, startled, and hurried to assist her back to the bed, tucking the light quilt around her, then brought over a bowl of bird's nest porridge. blowing on it to cool it before handing it to Shen Luan. You mustn't jest with your health. Mississippi medicine is 3 parts poison. After all, fourth miss belongs to the second branch. Shen Luan chuckled lightly as she accepted the bowl and spoon. In her previous life, Xian had harbored considerable resentment towards Shen Yu, but having devoted herself to defending Shen Yu, Xian could only watch in frustration. As she scooped a spoonful of porridge, she suddenly froze. Blood nest? And served in such an ostentatious bowl. Apart from her stepmother, Jean Shi, it was unlikely anyone in the illustrious Shun family would indulge in such extravagance. Chapter 6. Stepmother. This is, before she could finish, Yu Ji hurried in. Madam and fourth miss are here to see you. She had cleaned her hands and approached with a beaming smile. Fourth miss is quite concerned for you, knowing you are unwell, and came with madam to check on you. Shen Luan was momentarily taken aback, but soon enough, her stepmother, Jian Shi, entered alongside Shen Yu. Years ago, Shen Luan's father's first wife, Xie Shi, had died in childbirth, leaving behind her brother, Shen Luan Xiao, still in swaddling clothes. That a few years later, her father, Shen Yuanxiu, returned with a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Xie Shi, Shen Luan's birth mother, Wen Shi. Wen Shi's father had fallen from grace, and all eligible young women were sent to serve as courtesans in the Department of Song, Wen Shi included. Little did she expect to encounter Shen Yuanxiu. Their relationship blossomed over time, yet the matriarch would never consent to her son marrying the daughter of a criminal. Thus, she arranged for him to wed Jian Shi instead. Speaking of Jian Shi, she was indeed a peculiar woman. It was said that on their wedding night, Shen Yuanxiu had not even entered the bridal chamber before taking Wen Shi with him to Guangzhou for a case investigation. And he never returned. Jian Shi bore no children, and Shen Luan was returned to the Shen residence under her care. Shen Luan could not deny that Jian Shi treated her exceptionally well, truly raising her like a princess. Yet, Shen Yu had painted a different picture. After Shen Luan had grown aware of her surroundings, Shen Yu repeatedly told her it was Jian Shi's inability to accept her birth mother that had led her father to leave Yin City with Wen Shi, only to meet with an unfortunate fate upon returning home. Jian Shi had made her an orphan. The gifts Jian Shi lavished upon her were merely to avoid gossip and to absolve herself of guilt. Each time Jian Shi bestowed upon her a novel item, Shen Luan cherished it, but Shen Yu would remind her that it was a price paid with her mother's life. Gradually, the distance between her and the stepmother who had raised her grew ever wider. What could have caused you to fall ill? Jian Yu and I approached the bed but did not sit down, perhaps aware of her stepdaughter's aversion to her proximity. She instructed her servants to place the items she had brought on the table. Ive brought you some bird's nest and ginseng to help you recuperate. Forget everything else. Your health is of utmost importance. Shen Luan glanced at the table, where a tray brimming with supplements lay, their quality evidently beyond the ordinary. Shen Yu stifled a laugh behind her hand. Aunt, third sister is frail. How can she withstand such nourishment? Wouldn't it only make her weaker? Jian Shi immediately turned to Shen Luan, a look of bewilderment crossing her round, plump face. Shen Luan offered a grateful smile. Thank you, mother, for your thoughtfulness. The doctor said I truly need to recuperate, so I shall not be modest. Xian, please take care of these. Her words elicited astonishment from both Jian Shi and Shen Yu, particularly Jian Shi, for Shen Luan had previously addressed her as madam, yet now she had called her mother. Very well, I have plenty of these. I will have someone send you more later. Jian Shi gazed at Shen Luan's soft smile, feeling as if she were once again witnessing the tender child she had raised, a delicate little bundle who would beam at you with her toothless grin whenever you held her hand. Seeing that Shen Luan was well, Jian Shi did not linger, leaving Shen Yu behind to keep her company. As soon as Jean left, Shen Yu promptly plopped down beside Shen Luan's bed, furrowing her brow as she gazed at her. What on earth is going on with you? She couldn't even tolerate your birth mother, resulting in you never having laid eyes on your own mother, and yet you still call her mother? Did your mother die in vain? Such heart-wrenching words flowed effortlessly from Shen Yu's lips. Chapter 7. A change of heart. Shen Luan frowned. Fourth sister, is it customary for you to speak ill of our mother in such a way? Is this how Aunt has taught you? Third sister? Shen Yu replied, her expression one of confusion. What do you mean? What do you think? Shen Luan retorted. What did you give me to drink? I wanted to feign illness. Not truly become ill. Do I appear to you as if I am merely pretending? Shen Luan's hand, tucked beneath the covers, clenched into a tight fist, struggling to maintain her composure. The sight of Shan Yu's innocent and naive face brought back memories of her past life, where she remembered the grotesque scar that marred her own visage in the mirror, and no matter how much powder she applied to conceal it, it only became more hideous. That scar had confined Shen Luan to her shell, making her believe that Chao Jin was her only salvation, a gift from the heavens. Little did she know, it was Shen Yu and Chao Jin who had bestowed upon her this burden. Suppressing the murderous intent bubbling within her, Shen Luan suddenly wore a smiled, "Oh dear sister, why so serious? I was merely jesting. Fourth sister thinks of me in every way, always offering her guidance. Such kindness shall be etched in my heart forever." Shen Yu sighed with relief. Although she sensed something peculiar about Shen Luan's smile, she had expressed similar sentiments before. "Third sister, you have frightened me." This prescription was specially concocted by a well-acquainted doctor. "Perhaps due to your naturally frail constitution, it may have overwhelmed you for a moment, but fear not, it is harmless." Shen Luan smirked at her. "I appreciate your intentions, fourth sister. However, I have suddenly changed my mind. As a daughter of the Shen family, I cannot hide away and allow others to look down upon me." Shen Yu was momentarily taken aback, her tone growing urgent. "Sister, have you forgotten the near debacle at last year's flower viewing banquet? Those noble ladies are all so superficial. Why put yourself through that?" "You make a valid point," Shen Luan replied. "But fourth sister, wouldn't you face the same scrutiny?" Shen Yu was momentarily at a loss. Staring blankly at her, Shen Luan, her face etched with concern, grasped her hand. "I am, after all, the legitimate daughter of the third house, and my father was once the minister of justice. They may speak ill of me behind my back, but last year was merely due to my immaturity. But fourth sister is different. You are the legitimate daughters of the eldest and second houses. If you were to attend, I fear, at this point." Shen Yu's emotions flared, feeling insulted by Shen Luan's audacity to belittle her status. Yet, she couldn't afford to lose her temper. She still had to attend the flower viewing banquet. With her beauty, perhaps she might encounter a benefactor. What did her status as a concubine matter then? "I have grown accustomed to it. We can't take only 2 of the 3 available spots, and besides, I am but a concubine. Why should I fear what others say?" As she spoke, she dabbed at the corners of her eyes, feigning tears. Shen Luan watched her coldly, incredulous that she had once been deceived by such poor theatrics. She patted Shan Yu's hand reassuringly. "Fear not, fourth sister. This year, I shall not make a fool of myself. When the time comes, I will be sure to share any rewards from the noble patrons with you." Realizing Shen Luan was genuinely eager to attend, Shen Yu grew even more anxious. "Third sister, you know how difficult life has been under mother's care. Because you did not wish to go, I implored mother to allocate funds for new garments. If I cannot attend, mother will surely blame me." Shen Luan released her grasp, acknowledging the truth in Shan Yu's words. "I see. Fourth sister, why not calculate how much silver was spent on these garments and accessories? And let me cover that amount." With that, she gazed at Shen Yu with an innocent expression and added, "I may lack many things, but I possess an abundance of useless silver." Shen Yu. Chapter 8. Matters of the Heart. After a night of rest, Shen Luan awoke the next morning, dressed in vibrant attire that accentuated her complexion. She instructed Yu Ji to remain in the courtyard while she took Ziyin to visit their grandmother. Grandmother Zhang, the legitimate daughter of the Marquis of Chongqing, held a prestigious position within the Shen family. Although she was a legitimate daughter, her status was further solidified by her full-blooded brother who inherited the title, rendering her influence within the family unassailable. Her words were not to be challenged. However, grandmother was not a domineering figure. She believed that her descendants would find their own fortunes, and thus refrained from meddling in the affairs of the third house. Shen Luan's father, Shen Yuanxiu, was her youngest son and the most accomplished member of the family. Though he had passed away prematurely, grandmother Zhang could not help but pay extra attention to the third house, particularly favoring Shen Luan among her several granddaughters. As Shen Luan made her way to grandmother's courtyard, she recalled the anguish of her past life when her face had been disfigured, and how heartbroken her grandmother had been. She remembered how, after marrying, she had repeatedly returned to plead with grandmother to use her connections to help Chao Jian in his career. In 3 short years, he had ascended from a mere 7th-rank editor to the 3rd-rank minister of personnel. An astonishing rise through the ranks. Yet, even with such success, he remained insatiable. After Shen Luan had been schemed against by Chao Jin, and the rumors regarding her and Qin Gu had spread, Tragedy struck. Grandmother Zhang, distressed by Shen Luan's plight, succumbed to her grief. Shen Luan's palm stung from her own nails digging into her flesh. Upon stepping into the courtyard, she caught sight of an elderly maid approaching with a beaming smile. Ah, the fourth miss has arrived. Someone has already gone in to inform the old matriarch. Knowing that the fourth miss was unwell, the old matriarch has been quite worried. Thank you for your concern. Dear maid, I have summoned a doctor, and there is nothing to worry about. I came hastily to pay my respects to grandmother, as I did not wish for her to fret. The maid noted a difference in Shen Luan today, sensing a newfound brightness in her demeanor. This was how a girl of her age ought to be. Upon entering the courtyard, the aroma of sandalwood wafted through the air, creating a serene atmosphere. As she rounded the screen, she spotted grandmother seated on the couch, garbed in the familiar deep purple attire that lingered in her memory. Her silver hair was elegantly pinned with a green gemstone hairpin, and her kind face wrinkled with a smile as she waved. Unable to contain herself, Shen Luan rushed forward, disregarding etiquette, and clung to her grandmother's knee, secretly wiping away the moisture from her eyes. What troubles you, my dear? Have you been wronged? Shen Luan gently shook her head. I merely missed grandmother. I feel unfilial for causing you worry. Grandmother Zhang tenderly stroked her hair. As long as you are well, that is all that matters. Yuanxiu has only you as his daughter. You must be happy. Shen Luan rose from the floor, and grandmother guided her to sit beside her, examining her closely before letting out a sigh of relief. I heard you were ill, that I was planning to come see you. Thank goodness you are well. About the palace banquet in 2 days, at her age, what could escape grandmother's perceptive eyes? If Shen Luan truly did not wish to attend, she could simply decline. Shen Luan leaned affectionately against her shoulder, linking arms with her grandmother. I came to discuss that very matter. Although I was feeling a bit unwell yesterday, I am much better now. I have come to request grandmother to find me a maid who can teach me court etiquette. The rules in the palace are strict, and I cannot afford to bring shame upon you. Is that so? Her granddaughter would not dare to speak frivolously in front of her grandmother. I promise to learn diligently. Otherwise, let the maid punish me. Chapter 9. A turn of events. Grandmother Zhang found Shen Luan's rare display of affection and obedience amusing. Chuckling heartily as she playfully tapped the tip of her nose. This is your promise. She called for Wei the maid to come in, instructing her to take Shen Luan back with her. If she does not learn properly, you must report back to me. With a smile, Wei the maid complied, and Grandmother Zhang then directed her to the storeroom. I recall there is a set of East Pearl headwear, each bead perfectly round. Take it to this girl as she is going to the palace. She must not lack in elegance. Before Shen Luan departed, Grandmother Zhang gently patted her hand, her voice filled with affection. When the time comes, your aunt will accompany you into the palace. Do not be afraid. The noble ladies in the palace are not to be feared. If any trouble arises, your grandmother will be there. Shen Luan felt a lump in her throat and immediately knelt. I understand, grandmother. Upon learning that Shen Luan was to enter the palace, Jean became quite busy. She spent a considerable sum to invite the renowned embroiderers of Yin City to the manor, enlisting 3 of them to create a suitable outfit for Shen Luan without delay. Jean was even concerned that Shen Luan might be displeased. Entering the palace is no trivial matter. Your attire must be appropriate. Some of your current clothes are rather lackluster. We shall make one outfit, no more. Shen Luan expressed her heartfelt gratitude, saying, Thank you, mother. In my youth, I was oblivious to your care for me. Now, I reflect upon it with great shame. Having you manage these trifles for me is indeed a blessing. Jean was overwhelmed with emotion, feeling as though the clouds had parted to reveal the moon. Shen Luan was a child she had raised single-handedly. From her first words to her wobbly first steps, watching her blossom into a young lady, yet feeling her heart drift away, was a source of regret for Jin. To her surprise, the tides had turned, and Shen Luan now wished to draw near once more. This brought Jean immense joy. Look at how you speak. You are the only daughter of the 3rd house. I have no other concerns than to ensure you are well taken care of. Who else would I do this for? Indeed, I have some exquisite jewelry that would suit you perfectly. Allow me to personally select it for you. Shen Luan could not impede her and could only watch her depart with a bittersweet smile. Feeling a pang of sadness in her heart. In her previous life, she had lived in utter chaos, often wallowing in self-pity over her misfortunes. It was her own doing, the consequence of her blindness and folly. The Jin family was bustling with activity, while Shen Yu was nearly grinding her silver teeth in frustration. Was she truly attending the palace banquet? What sudden affliction had seized her? To think she would once again venture into the palace. Indeed, it was true. The third madam had summoned several embroiderers to craft garments, and it was said she had visited the old matriarch early in the morning, likely persuaded by her words. Why was grandmother so biased? If she went, then what about me? Xinyu twisted her handkerchief into a distorted shape, suddenly hearing commotion outside, and quickly concealed her fury. What sort of temper was fourth sister exhibiting? Among the two young ladies of the Shen family's second branch, Shun Ling, the legitimate daughter of the second madam, bore an air of haughtiness as she entered, taking a seat and casting a sidelong glance at Xinyu. Your plans have come to naught. Shen Luan is already preparing to enter the palace. You should remain at home, and if I receive any favor from a noble in the palace, I shall surely bring you something to see. Shun Yu clenched her teeth, forcing a smile. What nonsense is my second sister speaking? What do I have to plan? Is it not true? Previously, you kept Shen Luan at home, allowing us to enter the palace together. If she has decided to go, what concern is it of yours? Chapter 10. A pearl covered in dust deep down, Shun Yu wished to strike Shen Ling, who constantly compared herself to the eldest sister. Shan Qing. Did she even deserve that? A failed imitation, she could only seek a sense of superiority in her own sphere. Indeed, the second sister spoke truly. The third sister had been delayed by matters, and the younger sister could only serve as a placeholder. The third sister was attending the palace banquet, while the younger sister would remain at home to pray for her sisters. Shen Ling had come merely to revel in Xian Yu's embarrassment. Having seen what she wished, she had no desire to linger further. She needed to return and inspect her own garments and adornments, ensuring that she would not be overshadowed by Shen Qing. The day after tomorrow was the palace entrance. Wei Mama had only managed to teach Shen Luan the basic etiquette of the palace, yet Shen Luan had learned with utmost diligence. When Wei Mama reported back to Zhang Shi, her words dripped with admiration. The third young lady had indeed matured and become more sensible. Old matriarch, you may rest easy. Zhang Shi, with her eyes half closed, held a string of sandalwood prayer beads, counting them one by one. It would be wonderful if she truly had grown wise. This child, like the third, was intelligent but perhaps a bit slower in maturity, easily deceived, and thus required careful guidance. That night, in the courtyard of the Shen family's main house, the first Madame Yu Shi sat before her mirror, allowing her maid to remove the hairpins from her head. My lord, tomorrow I shall take the three young ladies into the palace. As for Qing, there is no need to speak. Her every gesture has been taught by me, and she will surely not falter. Although Ling's talent may not match Qing's, she will suffice. But Luan, last year, she nearly caused a ruckus. Who knows what trouble she might provoke this year? Shanda Laoi reclined on the couch, reading a book by the light of a nearby lamp, seemingly indifferent to her concerns. What trouble could she possibly cause? Last year was merely an accident. Luan simply prefers to stay indoors. It would not be a bad thing for her to see the world more often. You speak so lightly. The palace is filled with nobility. Should anything go awry, it could implicate our entire family. I would rather take you with me. Luan is the only daughter of my third brother. As her elder aunt, you should pay her a little more heed. Am I not paying attention? Yu Shi turned back, seeing Shen Yuanda's eyes glued to the book, unable to suppress her raised voice. What could be so engrossing? My lord, what are you so focused on? Shinda Laoi clicked his tongue in wonder. There is a compiler at the Hanlin Academy named Chao Jin. I had not previously noticed his exceptional qualities. He is a third-degree scholar and has been a compiler for 3 years now. His knowledge and appearance are quite respectable. Unfortunately, he hails from a humble background and lacks recommendations. I had paid him little mind until I saw his recent submissions, which were substantive and innovative. He is truly a talent. Such learning wasted on a compiler. It is a pearl covered in dust. Yu Shi scoffed dismissively. He is merely a compiler. Why should my lord care? A humble background with no recommendations will lead to nothing significant. Such a pity. I only just now discovered his remarkable nature. Yu Shi chuckled lightly. If my lord finds it regrettable, why not invite him to our household? I think he would be quite suitable for Luan. Considering she is also a daughter of a concubine at least, he has the merit of being a scholar. Do not speak such nonsense. Shindaleoi's sudden outburst startled Yu Shi. When she glanced up, she saw his face twisted in anger. Luan is the only daughter of my third brother, who is no longer with us for her marriage. There is still the matter of my third sister-in-law's consideration. You are her elder aunt. How can you utter such ridiculous words? Chapter 11. Do not treat him poorly. Yu Shi was left speechless. I was merely speaking casually. That is unacceptable. The Shin family still holds a prominent position in Yin City due to the Emperor's grace toward my third brother, who died in service. Everyone in our family must remember this at all times. You are simply Shun de Laoi, not one for arguments, flicked his sleeve and left for the study. Yu Shi slammed her hairpin down onto the table. Is he truly angry with me? Who has been toiling to manage this family? Is it I? He only remembers the merits of my third brother. My lady, please calm yourself. Do not let outsiders hear. Am I not allowed to speak? How long has Shin Yuanxiu been dead? The emperor may have shown favor, granting the Shin family a name of loyalty, but who has been working outside all these years? Regardless of who it is, whenever the glory of the Shin family is mentioned, it always returns to Shun Yuanxiu. Why is that? My dear lady, you know well the bond between my lord and the third master. Do not say such things. If the old matriarch were to hear, you must temper your anger. My lord did not mean it that way. Yu Shi's heart raced violently, and after a moment, she gradually calmed down. I know my limits. He looks down upon a compiler. She is merely a daughter of a concubine. Let us see if she can even marry a compiler in the end. In the stillness of the night, the compiler did not have a separate courtyard. Several of them were cramped into a small yard, though each had their own small room. This moment, in one of the rooms, the light still burned brightly. By the window, Chao Jian bent over his desk, writing fervently. Occasionally, the candle would sputter, casting shifting shadows across his face. He had not perished. He had returned to life. The light in Chao Jian's eyes was nearly frenzied. The pain of his severed knees caused his hand to tremble, leaving a heavy blot of ink on the paper. Breathing rapidly, he set down his pen and crumpled the paper into a ball. Tossing it aside, he had been stabbed in the heart, and when he opened his eyes again, he found himself back in the Hanlin Academy, once more a compiler. Having grown accustomed to the life of a revered official, where he was held in high esteem, he nearly slipped up and raised suspicions. Yet he was all too familiar with the role of a compiler. He had once thought he would only ever be a compiler. Managing to get by, spreading out a fresh sheet of paper, he realized that heaven had not treated him poorly, granting him a second chance at life. How could he waste time in the position of a compiler? He understood the future movements of the court all too well. He must marry Shan Luan again. After her death, Chao Jian felt as if a piece of his heart had been gouged out. This time, he could harbor no regrets. He would not need to rely on Shin Luan's entanglements with other men to succeed. He could ensure that she married him in a splendid manner. The very thought of Shen Luan waiting for him at the Shin family home twisted the light in Chao Jin's eyes even further. Just a little longer, and he would soon astonish the world, proudly proposing to the Shin family. On the day of entering the palace, Shen Luan donned a newly crafted gown, adorned with age-appropriate hairpins, and delicate pale yellow embroidered shoes, their tips set with pearls, peeking out from under her skirt, making her look resplendent. Jin Shi could not take her eyes off her, marveling at how she had blossomed into a beautiful young lady. Shen Luan smiled gently as she accompanied her to the flower-draped gate, where members of the main and secondary branches awaited. Upon seeing Shen Luan's attire, Yu Shi could find no fault and nodded approvingly. Once you enter the palace, remember not to act overly. Simply follow my lead. Always bear in mind that you are daughters of the Shin family, and your every word and deed represents our family's upbringing. Chapter 12. A response in kind. The three young ladies bowed in response, and Yu Shi waved her handkerchief, signaling them to board the carriage. Shen Luan caught a glimpse of Shen Yu standing nearby and approached her with a warm smile, affectionately taking her hand. Fourth sister, you have always helped me find leisure at home. Now it is time for me to consider you. Rest assured at home and do not worry about me, as your elder sister. How could I allow you to always be concerned for me? Her words were sincere, almost causing Shen Yu to lose her composure. She forced a stiff smile in reply. Sister, there is no need to feel obligated. No, fourth sister. You have treated me so well in the past. How could I not reciprocate? In this world, there is no one who cares for me as much as fourth sister does. Shen Luan gently patted her hand, assuring her that I shall repay your kindness in due course. Having said this, She turned and gracefully lifted her skirt, assisted by her maid, as she boarded the carriage. Shan Yu's palm throbbed with pain from her grip. The resplendent and new garments adorning Shen Luan, along with the exquisite and expensive hairpins adorning her head, ignited a fierce envy within her. Especially that face, so charming and radiant, it was heart-wrenching to behold. Why does this daughter of a concubine receive the treatment of a legitimate daughter in the Shin family? Both born of secondary wives, what gives her the right to be acknowledged as the legitimate daughter of the third branch by their grandmother? Even Jin Shi does not oppose this, simply because she is favored by fortune. She is the daughter of Shin Yuanxiu, such a foolish girl, who thinks a few flattering words can absolve her of her ignorance. Dares to demand gratitude? Very well, she shall wait. I will ensure that they repay their debts in full. Inside the carriage, Shen Luan sat with Zi Yin by her side, who occasionally adjusted the hairpin in her hair. Shen Luan closed her eyes to rest, harboring no expectations for the palace banquet, driven solely by a desire to thwart Shan Yu's ambitions. Upon reaching the palace gates, they disembarked in single file. Shen Luan followed Yushi respectfully, entering the palace under the guidance of the attendants. The palace was unfamiliar to Shen Luan, and she felt no excitement. Nothing stirred her heart except thoughts of revenge. She intended to make Xin Yu and Chao Jin pay for ruining her life. This time, they would all face their reckoning. They first paid their respects to the Empress, where they encountered ladies from other families who had also come for the banquet. Shen Luan remained mindful of propriety, her gaze never wandering, dutifully following behind. When others performed their greetings, she mirrored their actions flawlessly, leaving no room for error. This palace banquet was organized for the ladies of various families to enjoy the scenery in a garden. And after greeting the Empress, they were guided to the garden. It was springtime, and many flowers, meticulously tended by the palace gardeners, had just begun to bloom, their delicate beauty captivating. Following Yushi, Shen Luan noticed several noble ladies in the garden. They dared not approach too boldly, fearing that a single misstep might offend the esteemed guests. Thus, Yushi engaged in quiet conversation with familiar matrons. Oh dear, the ladies of the Shen family are here. We were just speaking of you. Hurry and join us to pay your respects. Yushi was taken aback, and the nearby acquaintances looked on with envy. They hurried to seize the opportunity to present themselves before the noble ladies. Yushi immediately prepared to move, asking, "May these young ladies accompany us?" Of course, they must come along. Hurry now. Both Shen Qing and Shen Ling displayed expressions of delight, particularly Shen Ling, who touched her hairpins with excitement shimmering in her eyes. In contrast, Shen Luan appeared overly composed, without a flicker of emotion, which caught Shen Qing's attention, prompting her to glance at her several times. It was only when they approached the noble ladies that Shen Luan discovered that even Zhang Guifei was present, which surprised her greatly. Chapter 13. A glimpse of wonder. Zhang Guifei. Shen Luan had often heard Chao Jian mention her in her past life, describing her as a legendary beauty shrouded in mystery, about whom no one in the court dared speak openly. It was only after a night of excessive drinking that Chao Jian had recounted this palace secret to her in jest. Zhang Guifei held an esteemed position in the palace, second only to the Empress, yet her favor was so apparent that even the Empress could not compare. The Emperor indulged her whims and cherished her deeply. Thus, Zhang Guifei's son, the ninth prince, became a thorn in the side of the third prince, as the Emperor, out of affection for Zhang Guifei, lavished attention on the ninth prince, personally educating him and hinting at his desire to establish him as the heir apparent as he matured. However, Zhang Guifei had not been chosen to enter the palace. Rather, she was brought in by imperial decree, said to be the daughter of an official from the border regions, with whom the emperor had a prior connection. Yet, Chao Jin had laughed boisterously, asserting that there was no wall that did not leak information. Zhang Guifei was no mere official's daughter. Many within the palace knew her true identity, but none dared to speak of it, keeping it buried in silence. Chao Jin was always cautious and did not reveal everything, so Shen Luan only knew that Zhang Guifei had been married before entering the palace. For reasons unknown, she had changed her identity and name, rising to become an immensely favored consort. Shen Luan adhered strictly to decorum, trailing behind Yushi, her gaze seldom lifted, although she was curious to see what Zhang Guifei looked like. What extraordinary beauty could inspire such special favor from the emperor, Madame Shen? No need for formalities. I was just speaking of the Shen family with a few sisters. I have heard much about your talented daughters. We are all quite curious, especially about the third Miss Shen, daughter of the former Minister of Justice, Shindadashrand. It seems she did not come to court last year, yet I have heard she is present this time? Yu Shi gritted her teeth inwardly. In her view, her daughter Shen Qing was the most outstanding of the Shen family, yet the ladies were eager to meet Shen Luan. What talents could she possibly possess? Hearing her name mentioned, Shen Luan stepped forward, performing her greeting with precision, adhering to the etiquette taught by Granny Wei, her posture impeccable. Raising her head, she heard a gentle voice and slowly looked up, though her eyes remained respectfully downcast. Indeed, she was a striking young lady. If she were to grow a few more years, who knew what kind of beauty she would become, truly worthy of being Shen Qing's daughter. Why do we not see you more often? Do you find it dull to come to the palace and converse with us? Shen Luan replied in a melodious and soft voice, smiling gently. Your Graces, I have been frail since childhood, often remaining at home to recuperate, fearing I might inadvertently offend your Graces. It is a fortune for me to have the opportunity to pay my respects to your Graces. A child who understands propriety, how refreshing. Such well-spoken words are indeed endearing. Bring forth a reward. Thank you for your grace. Shen Luan's palms were clammy with sweat, but she did not forget her manners and returned to Yu Shi's side only after expressing her gratitude. This child does seem a bit too delicate at you. Go fetch some nourishing supplements for her to take home. The hall fell silent for a moment, and unable to resist, Shen Luan stole a hurried glance at Zhang Guifei. Though she quickly averted her gaze. Just that fleeting glance was enough to leave one breathless. Zhang Guifei reclined languidly in her noble chair, her eyes not directed at Shen Luan, her hand idly twirling a flower stripped of its leaves. Seemingly lost in thought. Yet, she radiated an ethereal glow, instantly etching herself into one's memory, a breathtaking sight. Chapter 14. Just a glimpse, Sister Zhen, your generosity is quite excessive. Who does not know that your storeroom is overflowing with the Emperor's gifts? Someone jested, trying to lighten the mood. Zhang Guifei cast a mild glance and replied nonchalantly, You flatter me. I merely add a little something. Her demeanor remained indifferent, as she had always been, and since she had also bestowed gifts. The other consorts naturally felt compelled to reciprocate. Soon, several young ladies received generous rewards, with Shen Luan receiving an additional supplement from Zhang Guifei compared to her sisters. The women of the Shen family were both surprised and delighted. This was their first time receiving such lavish gifts in the palace. Yu Shi contemplated how to express their gratitude appropriately. A young palace maid hurried in to announce, Your Graces, the Emperor is on his way here. Zhang Guifei straightened slightly, gesturing to Yu Shi and the others, That will be enough. You may leave now. Depart quickly, so as not to disturb the Emperor. Yu Shi promptly led the three young ladies in expressing their thanks, clutching their rewards as they hurried back to their quarters. The palace banquet had allowed the Shen family women to shine brightly, and while Yu Shi wished to boast, she did not want to seem too ostentatious. Her smile revealing the slightest hint of her teeth. After the banquet concluded, Shen Luan returned home with Yu Shi, sharing the rewards among them, while Yu Shi allowed Shen Luan to keep her share. Once in the courtyard to count and store the gifts, Ziyin was taken aback. Miss, the supplements from Zhang Guifei are of exceptional quality. I fear they may surpass the combined gifts from the other noble ladies. Are they not too extravagant? Shen Luan, seated beneath the lamp reading, dismissed the concern, stating that Zhang Guifei's gifts were all bestowed by the Emperor and thus would not be lacking in quality. They should simply accept them, indeed. Also, do not store them all away. Fourth sister will surely come to see me tomorrow. I promised her that if I received anything good, I would show it to her. One must honor their word. Ian hesitated slightly, her tone laced with uncertainty, but, just to show fourth sister. Shen Luan's lips curled into a playful smile, just a glimpse, to satisfy fourth sister's curiosity. Yes, Ziyin responded enthusiastically. Relieved that her mistress had come to her senses, realizing that she would not indiscriminately give away all her treasures to fourth sister. A mere glance was acceptable, very acceptable indeed, as Shen Luan anticipated. Early the following day, she paid her respects to her grandmother and mother. Just as she returned to her courtyard and had not yet settled in, Shen Yu appeared. Third sister? Shen Yu's tone was affectionate. Immediately drawing close to Shen Luan, exuding sisterly warmth, I saw 2 pots of flowers blooming beautifully in the courtyard, so I had them brought here for you. You love peonies? don't you? Do they please your eyes? The servants set the 2 pots of peonies down in the corridor. One pink and the other a deep purple. Their delicate hues in this season brought a sense of comfort, embodying the essence of spring. Shun Luan stood beneath the corridor for a while, her lips curving into a gentle smile as she expressed her gratitude. Thank you, fourth sister, for thinking of me when you saw the flowers bloom. Of course, came the reply. Whenever I come across something delightful, I always think of you, sister. She grasped Shun Luan's hand, her eyes shimmering with a subtle urgency. I heard that you received a generous reward from the ladies in the palace yesterday, and I can't help but feel envious. Might third sister allow me a glimpse? Xin Qing's treasures would undoubtedly be beyond her reach, and Shen Ling's temperament would not permit her to see much either. Chapter 15. This is as it should be. Upon hearing that they had received a significant bounty from the palace, a wave of jealousy nearly engulfed Xinyu. If not for Shun Luan's sudden change of heart, she would have been the one reaping the rewards. Indeed, it should have been her. Yet, Shun Yu maintained the demeanor of a devoted younger sister, playfully pleading with Shun Luan. This tactic had always worked wonders on Shun Luan, allowing her to experience the feeling of being valued and relied upon. In the past, Shen Yu could obtain anything she desired. Shun Luan gently withdrew her arm from Shen Yu's embrace, letting out a soft sigh. Her tone earnest. Fourth sister, I used to dislike going out when I was at home, and I perceived you as innocent and carefree. However, after visiting the palace, I now understand that adhering to decorum is essential. At your age, behaving like a child without any sense of propriety is quite unbecoming. Xinyu. Has she truly taken on the role of the elder sister to lecture me? Xinyu took a few discreet breaths to suppress her agitation. Replying softly, third sister speaks wisely. It is indeed my impetuousness. Seeing Xinyu bow her head, Shun Luan suddenly smiled. That's more like it. I purposely did not store away the gifts from the palace. As I was waiting for you to come by, let us go inside. She waved cheerfully at Xinyu, who felt somewhat dazed. What was going on with Shun Luan? Her demeanor seemed to shift back to the gullible persona she had shown before. Xinyu had no time to ponder this as she followed her inside, her eyes dazzled by the array of items laid out on the table. There were small bowls intricately carved from jade, translucent and delicate, exuding an air of opulence. The exquisite spices, fit only for the palace ladies, wafted an elegant and subtle fragrance, which Shun Yu inhaled deeply several times. There were hairpins crafted by palace artisans, made from fine materials with exquisite workmanship, unattainable elsewhere. Each item on the table radiated an extraordinary richness. How could anything gifted by the ladies of the palace be subpar? Xinyu touched each piece, finding herself enamored with them all. She wanted each one. If only she could adorn herself with such a hairpin, or wear clothes imbued with that fragrance, she would undoubtedly become the center of attention upon stepping outside. Third sister was truly fortunate. Merely entering the palace once had yielded such treasures, leaving her younger sister filled with envy. Shun Yu's smile held a hint of bitterness as she lowered her head, concealing the longing in her eyes, her voice soft and pitiful. Unlike me, who lacks even the qualifications to enter the palace, I can only hope for my sister's safe return. Shun Yu was a concubine's daughter. The Shen family had 3 branches, with only the second branch lacking a son. Lady Lu, the second madam, was strong-willed and initially refused to let her husband, Xin Yuanzhong, take a concubine. However, due to her own inability to conceive, she reluctantly raised one of her handmaidens to the status of concubine, forcing her to bear a child. To her dismay, the child was a girl, Xinyu. Her birth mother was ill-fated, passing away shortly after giving birth. And as a concubine's daughter, Xinyu had struggled under Lady Lu's care over the years. Yet, she was astute, knowing she could not covet second sister Shen Ling's possessions, but could certainly set her sights on Shen Luan. Xinyu, with a similar background, had garnered Shen Luan's sympathy early on. She had also incited discord between her and Jianshi, making Shen Luan believe that she was the only one who could understand her in this household. Whenever Xinyu mentioned her own circumstances, Shen Luan would empathize deeply, and in an effort to comfort her, would bestow upon her various delightful gifts. Xinyu watched eagerly for Shen Luan's next move. She waited patiently, and indeed, Shen Luan was about to take action. Chapter 16. I shall not put you in a difficult position. Ziyun, please take care of these items. Shen Yu's heart leapt with joy as she prepared to feign reluctance before accepting them. having brought along a handkerchief she had embroidered herself, which she could offer as a token of gratitude. Shen Yu lifted her head, her face a blend of surprise and refusal, only to hear Shen Luan continue. Please carefully put these items away. It was unintentional on my part to cause fourth sister any sadness. I should not have let you see these. Shen Yu. Xian swiftly had the items carried out, softly reminding everyone to handle the precious gifts from the palace with utmost care. As Shen Yu watched the items depart, her eyes seemed to glimmer with hidden hooks. Fourth sister, please forgive me this time. It was my sister's oversight. I shall ensure it does not happen again. Shen Luan wore a pleasing expression that nearly caused Shen Yu to retreat into herself. If she felt so embarrassed, why not simply give them to her? How could third sister be blamed? It was merely her misfortune, having no connection to such treasures, even if her sister wished to bestow them upon her. She could not accept them. With her status, how could she make use of such precious objects? As Shen Yu spoke, she dabbed at the corners of her eyes with her handkerchief, her eyelids reddening. Shen Luan, displaying remarkable thoughtfulness, patted her hand gently. Fourth sister, do not say such things. How could I use these to embarrass you? You have treated me so well. I would never allow you to be put in a difficult position. Her smile radiated warmth, causing Shen Yu to nearly grind her teeth in frustration. Was she truly this foolish? More so than before, how could she not even grasp the meaning behind her own words? Yet, Shen Yu could only swallow her indignation. As she departed from Shen Luan's courtyard, Shen Yu's face was flushed with suppressed emotions. The room quieted, and Shen Luan leisurely reclined in a chaise, covering her face with a brocade handkerchief to conceal her mocking smile. Before her marriage, she had wholeheartedly cared for Shen Yu. She had always remembered to set aside a portion of the fine gifts sent by Jin Shi for Shen Yu, ensuring that among the 4 daughters of the Shen family, Shen Yu would not be ridiculed in social circles, adorned as she was with the valuable items gifted by Shen Luan. And what had that resulted in? Shen Yu had conspired with Chao Jin to ruin her own appearance. Beneath the silk handkerchief, Shen Luan's expression twisted momentarily. Her life had been forged from the essence of a vengeful spirit. She had never intended to simply evade disaster and live peacefully. All the tribulations she had endured in her previous life must be experienced in turn by those who had caused her demise. This was true justice. Ziyun, standing a few steps away, felt an inexplicable chill from the laughter that echoed from her mistress. 2 days later, Shen Luan received an invitation from the Guangyang Marquis's residence. Upon seeing the familiar handwriting of Qin Shu, she momentarily lost herself, as if she were grasping the invitation that Qin Shu had sent her on that day. Miss? Ziyun's voice pulled Shen Luan back to reality. She lowered her gaze and realized she had nearly torn the invitation in her grip. Miss Qin's attendant is still waiting for your reply. Shen Luan forced a smile. Since Shu has sent me an invitation, how could I possibly decline? Please respond. Understood. Shen Luan set the invitation aside. Her bond with Qin Shu was one of true friendship, devoid of any secrets. Only Qin Shu had remained by her side during her previous life, even after her face was ruined and she could not step outside the confines of her home. Qin Shu often came to chat with her, easing her troubles and offering solace, which had allowed Shen Luan to endure. Therefore, Qin Shu was an immensely significant friend to Shen Luan. In this new life, she had yet to visit her. However, the thought of Qin Shu's brother, Qin Gu, stirred an indescribable turmoil within Shen Luan. She hoped to avoid encountering him at the Guangyang Marquis's residence and sincerely clasped her hands in prayer. Otherwise, she feared she might lose her composure. 3 days later, the day of Qin Shu's invitation arrived. Shen Luan did not go to great lengths to adorn herself. Their relationship did not demand such pretense. Shen Luan had frequented the Guangyang Marquis's residence many times, and upon her arrival, the servants greeted her with smiles, saying, "Our young lady has been eagerly awaiting your arrival, sending someone to inquire after you several times. She has finally been able to welcome you." With a gentle smile, Shen Luan entered the residence. Making her way with familiarity to Qin Shu's quarters, "Luan, why did you take so long to come? Quickly, come and see the treasure I found." Qin Shu rushed toward Shen Luan, seizing her hand and pulling her into the room. Once inside, Qin Shu opened a brocade box on the table, her expression one of pure delight as she exclaimed, "Tada! My brother brought me this gift when he returned." Inside the box lay a snow-white jade sphere, intricately carved with delicate patterns, clearly of exceptional quality and craftsmanship. Look inside. Qin Shu pressed the jade sphere into Shan Luan's hands, and only then did she discover that there was another smaller sphere within, which spun back and forth as she gently prodded it. Shen Luan's face lit up with surprise. How exquisite! Isn't it wonderful? Qin Shu laughed joyfully, referring to the exquisite piece known as the Ling Long White Jade Ball, which consisted of 3 layers, each capable of rotation, adorned with distinct carvings on each tier. I had never encountered such a meticulously crafted object before, and it was only natural that it prompted an immediate invitation for you to visit. My brother rarely bestows gifts upon me, yet when he does, they are invariably remarkable, thus I shall not dwell on it. Qin Shu wrinkled her nose in jest, while Shen Luan admired the piece for a moment before carefully returning the jade ball to its brocade box. Your brother is truly kind to you. Shen Luan herself had a brother, but they seldom crossed paths, perhaps only once every 10 days or so. However, Shen Luan deemed this normal, as her brother Xinwan Xiao was a legitimate son of the main wife, whereas she was born of a different mother. How could she possibly compare? Luan, your brother might simply possess a naturally aloof disposition. There is no need for you to take it to heart. After all, you are of the same household, and surely he will assist you in the future. Qin Shu discerned Shen Luan's thoughts at a glance and gently offered her comfort. Yet Shen Luan merely smiled lightly and shook her head. Perhaps in her past life, she had harbored some grievances towards this brother, but now, none remained. After marrying Chao Jin, that brother, who had never been close to her, had indeed come to her aid, though she learned of it only later. At that time, Chao Jin had forbidden her from any contact with Xinwan Xiao, as he sought to curry favor with the third prince. Let us not dwell on this. I miss you dearly. Shen Luan leaned against Qin Shu's shoulder, her voice soft and tender, imbued with a hint of reliance and nostalgia. Qin Shu, accustomed to her affection, embraced her and exclaimed with laughter, I miss you too. But how long has it been since we last met? Has something at home been troubling you again? Let me tell you, that 4th sister of yours. Qin Shu chattered on, while Shen Luan gently closed her eyes. A smile gracing her lips, she truly missed Qin Shu. The 2 young ladies indulged in their sweet intimacy for a time, but as the hour grew late, it was time for Shen Luan to return. Qin Shu had intended to escort her out of the residence, hoping to engage in further conversation along the way, but unexpectedly, the lady of the Marquis's household sent a maid to summon her. Shen Luan smiled softly as she patted the back of Qin Shu's hand. I am quite familiar with this place. There is no need for you to escort me. Hurry along, I can leave on my own. With a wave to the regretful Qin Shu, Shen Luan departed with Xian. Shen Luan was indeed well acquainted with the Guangyang Marquis's residence, yet had she known she would encounter Qin Gu along the way, she would have chosen a different path. Chapter 18. Is it so obvious? Upon catching sight of Qin Gu from a distance, Shen Luan froze in place. It was as if she had not felt the chill of death until now. Or perhaps she had been so stunned by Qin Ji's words that all that remained was hatred, causing her to selectively forget the circumstances that had led to her entrapment by him. But now, as Qin Gu stood vividly before her, an overwhelming embarrassment washed over her, leaving her momentarily breathless. Memories she had deliberately chosen to forget surged forth, clear enough to shatter her composure. Chao Jin had placed all his bets on a single opportunity. He would never allow it to fail. Thus, the drug he administered to Shen Luan was a potent concoction obtained from who knows where. It rendered Shen Luan utterly devoid of reason, only aware that the person before her could restore her life. Even when Qin Gu forcibly attempted to distance himself from her, coaxing her to summon a physician, she had wept in distress, clutching his garment and pressing her cool lips against his. These were things she should have completely forgotten. Yet they now felt engraved in her mind like a knife. Instantly, her hatred for Chao Jin intensified. Why did she still remember? What vile substance had he procured? As Qin Gu drew nearer, Shen Luan's delicate face flushed crimson. Unable to conceal her distress, she lifted her skirts and turned away, almost breaking into a run, leaving Xian behind in a flurry of confusion. Miss, what is the matter? Qin Gu stood dumbfounded, watching Shen Luan's figure disappear among the trees. Xiao Wu, did I do something odd today? Qin Ji's attendant looked puzzled yet attentively scrutinized him, stating seriously, Young master, you appear perfectly fine, as charming and graceful as ever. Qin Gu shot him a glare and inspected himself, indeed finding nothing amiss. Why had Shen Luan run away as if she had seen a ghost? Though she was naturally reserved, She was by no means lacking in decorum. To see him without even a greeting and then flee. Qin Gu narrowed his eyes, pondering whether Shu Shu had divulged something about him to her. Hadn't he brought a gift for Qin Shu? Surely she had not failed to extol his virtues before Shen Luan. Shen Luan took a different route, hastening her exit from the Guangyang Marquis' residence. Xian, out of breath, caught up. Miss, what is the matter? Wasn't that the second young master Qin? Why did you not greet him? Shen Luan turned to her. Did it seem obvious that I was avoiding him, Xian? Did the young lady genuinely believe it was not apparent? In the astonished gaze of Xian, Shen Luan found her answer. Feeling a wave of defeat wash over her, she had likely left Qin Gu with a strange impression. I suddenly wished to take a different path. Let us return to the residence. Shen Luan herself could not pinpoint the source of her frustration. She settled into the carriage, leaning back against the interior as her eyes slowly closed. In her past life, her impression of Qin Gu had always been one of reliability and capability. Qin Shu had often praised her brother in her presence, and Shen Luan had only envied her for having such an admirable sibling, never pondering further. Yet upon her return to this world, she recalled the words Qin Gu had spoken after personally avenging her against Chao Jin. Shen Luan dared not let her thoughts wander too far, yet she could not help but do so. As the carriage departed from the Guangyang Marquis' residence, in the alley opposite, Chao Jin's figure emerged slowly. His gaze had been fixed on Shen Luan since her arrival. Chapter 19. Not familiar with you. Shen Luan appeared even more beautiful than he remembered. Every frown, smile, and movement captured the eye. And Chao Jin thought to himself that his wife ought to shine in such a manner, deserving the envy of all for his accomplishments. He withdrew his gaze and allowed it to settle upon the entrance of the Guangyang Marquis' residence. Feeling a surge of anger rising within him, his expression darkening. Qin Gu. He nearly ground his teeth in fury, the name a bitter morsel in his mouth. Why had he chosen to use Shen Luan as bait to ensnare Qin Gu? Was it not due to his own nefarious intentions towards her? It was the third prince who had shared the rumor that during the campaign, Qin Gu had married Shen Luan, and upon learning of her marriage after his victorious return, he had destroyed much of his own estate in rage. Chao Jian recalled the mocking words of the third prince. Chao Jin, you truly possess a remarkable ability. There are few things that could provoke Qin Gu. Yet you have one. Is this not fate? Standing at the entrance of the Guangyang Marquis' residence, Chao Jian clenched his fists. In his past life, Shen Luan had belonged to him. In this life, she was destined to be his again. And he would not permit Qin Gu a single opportunity. Suddenly, a smile broke across Chao Jin's face as he patted his chest. This time, he would ensure that Shen Luan willingly married him, for he alone knew her best. Shen Luan had only just lamented the absence of her brother, who was as elusive as a dragon, when she unexpectedly encountered him a few days later. While paying her respects to her grandmother, the esteemed elder Shen Yuanda rarely made an appearance, accompanied by two young boys from the family. Shen Jian of the main branch and Shen Wanxiao. Shen Luan's brother. Shen Luan stood aside, stealing glances at her seldom-seen brother. It was said that Shen Wanxiao bore a striking resemblance to their father, Shen Yuanxiao, although Shen Luan had never laid eyes on her father. Yet if Shen Wanxiao truly resembled him, then their father must have been a handsome man. Regrettably, she had rarely seen any emotion on her brother's face, which bore a perpetual air of cold indifference. As if he were saying, do not approach. We are not familiar. Shen Luan pondered whether she had ever exchanged 100 words with Shen Wanxiao. It was a perilous thought indeed. Shen Yuanda paid respects to Madame Zhang and promptly clarified his purpose. Their mother was aware that Jian and Wanxiao were soon to take the imperial examination. Although they had engaged a tutor at home, the brothers felt something was lacking. After much contemplation, they decided that rather than remain confined to traditional study, they might benefit more from a private academy where they could learn alongside gifted individuals, sharing diverse perspectives that could prove advantageous. The Shen family, a scholarly lineage with 3 generations of laureates, placed great importance on academic pursuits. Thus Shen Yuanda sought the elder matriarch's approval for this significant endeavor. Madame Zhang pondered briefly. Your considerations are thorough. However, those invited to the academy must be carefully selected. Do not worry, mother. I already have several excellent candidates in mind, talented and extraordinary individuals who will surely aid Jian and Wanxiao. Shen Yuanda, filled with confidence, saw that Madame Zhang did not oppose the idea and eagerly set about making arrangements. Shen Jian and Shen Wanxiao remained with Madame Zhang, engaging her in conversation. During their interaction, Shan Luan remained silent, dutifully standing beside her grandmother, occasionally serving tea and massaging her shoulders, displaying utmost obedience. Shen Wenxiao regarded her with a measure of surprise. When had she ever been so attentive and filial to their grandmother? What had prompted this sudden change? Chapter 20. What a skilled conversationalist. Madame Zhang, delighted by Shen Luan's attentiveness, pulled her closer. Once your brother passes his examinations, you too shall bask in his glory. As his sister, do you have any token of appreciation for Wenxiao, who works so diligently in his studies? Shen Luan noticed Shan Wenxiao's gaze upon her and momentarily froze, bewildered by her grandmother's unexpected remarks. However, Shan Luan could only brace herself to meet Shen Wenxiao's cold gaze, slightly curtsying as she blinked a few times to muster her voice. How about, I make you a book pouch, brother? At that moment, Shen Luan felt as if she were a complete fool. Yet even after living a second life, she remained utterly at a loss when facing her elder brother. Surely, Shen Wenxiao would reject the idea. Shen Luan scolded herself inwardly for her lack of wit. Their relationship had always been distant, so why create such an awkward situation? She chuckled foolishly a couple of times, preparing to belittle her embroidery skills to divert the topic. If that is the case, then I shall await your response. Shen Wenxiao's calm and unfazed voice made Shen Luan shut her mouth. After a moment of reflection, she hurriedly added, I fear that my embroidery skills might not meet your expectations. Not at all. Shen Luan chuckled. You truly excel in conversation. The awkward atmosphere lingered until Shen Ling and Shen Yu arrived to pay their respects, prompting both Shan Jian and Shan Wenxiao to take their leave. Watching Shen Ling and Shen Yu converse with their grandmother, Shen Luan's thoughts swirled. Was she truly going to craft a book pouch for her brother? Such an act had never occurred in her previous life. Why was Shen Wenxiao not declining it? Shen Luan returned to the courtyard and instructed Yuji to select some materials from the storeroom. Miss, what is it that you wish to make? A book pouch. Fourth sister often praises your discerning eye, so please choose some elegant and understated fabrics. Do not disappoint me. Yuji's expression grew serious as she quickly bowed and left to fulfill the task. After a while, she returned with the selected materials, all of which were indeed commendable. Shan Luan touched the fabrics and nodded in satisfaction. In a wonder, fourth sister always speaks highly of you. You truly possess remarkable skill. I fear she might just want to claim you for herself. Miss, my loyalty lies solely with you. I shall go nowhere else. Shan Luan lowered her gaze, observing the anxious Yuji kneeling in her eagerness to pledge loyalty, and silently chuckled before helping her to her feet. How could I not be aware of your loyalty? I merely offered a compliment, yet look how frightened you are. I cannot do without you here. Even if fourth sister were to genuinely come and request you, I would not comply. She smiled, noting the fleeting discomfort in Yuji's eyes, and her smile deepened. Very well, you may leave now. Please let Ziyin come in. She is more adept with the patterns. Understood. Yuji, preoccupied with her thoughts, exited without even closing the door. Shen Luan sat by the window, watching her troubled figure depart, her smile turning icy. How could Chao Jin and Shun Yu have succeeded so easily? Was it not due to her utterly devoted maid? With such unwavering loyalty, she ought to grant her a chance to truly shine. After confirming the design of the book pouch with Ziyin, Shen Luan began the task at hand. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, she was sewing for her elder brother, and her emotions were particularly complex. She almost wondered if Shen Wenxiao would agree simply due to an upset stomach. Nevertheless, having promised to make it, Shen Luan would not treat it lightly. Her embroidery skills were exceptional. Having been confined to the inner quarters in her previous life, she had honed her craft to a remarkable level. Shen Luan wished to conceal the sudden improvement in her embroidery skills, so she embroidered a cluster of bamboo on the pouch, with a crane subtly appearing amidst the bamboo grove. Mrs. Embroidery is truly exquisite. The second young master will surely appreciate it. Chapter 21. Still salvageable. Shen Luan cut the thread with scissors, hoping that her brother might find something lacking. Would he truly cherish a book pouch crafted by her? It is different, for this is the first piece of needlework you have made for the second young master. Yin cheerfully packed up the embroidery basket, murmuring, in our household, you and the second young master are undoubtedly the closest. However, you have always kept your distance from him. Yet, the second young master's demeanor is indeed quite aloof. I hope your relationship will grow closer, for when you marry, he will be your support, just like the old madam. Shen Luan smiled but remained silent. Her grandmother's younger brother was but a marquis, and how could she dream of such fortune? Speaking of marriage should cease once one leaves the courtyard. Anne's face paled, and she swiftly covered her mouth. Forgive me, miss, it was thoughtless of me. Shen Luan was not genuinely angry. However, in this lifetime, the prospect of marriage held little significance for her. Once she fulfilled her long-held wish, even becoming a nun would suffice. The family affairs of the Shen clan soon progressed, and Shen Luan managed to complete the book pouch in time, intending to present it to Shen Wanxiao. She had scarcely visited Shen Wanxiao's courtyard. After instructing someone to announce her arrival at the entrance, she obediently awaited. After a while, a servant emerged to invite her in. Shen Luan was momentarily taken aback. She had assumed Shen Wanxiao would simply have the servant accept the pouch. Why was she being summoned to meet him? Third miss, please, the second young master is in the study. Shen Luan nodded, carrying the book pouch as she stepped inside. Shen Wanxiao's chamber was astonishingly simple and tranquil. Not a single servant was in sight, and even those present moved about with utmost silence. Upon reaching the study door, the attending servant opened it for her. Shen Luan took a deep breath before stepping inside. Her own courtyard had a small study, yet compared to Shen Wanxiao's, it was akin to a mere trifle. The spacious and bright study was filled with the scent of books and ink, and on the wall directly facing the door hung a piece of calligraphy pinned by Shen Wanxiao himself, his strokes as elegant and distinctive as his character. Shen Luan could not help but take a few extra glances, feeling that her understanding of this elder brother was woefully inadequate. Is the book pouch completed? Shen Luan quickly regained her composure and walked around the screen, spotting Shen Wanxiao seated at his desk. Yes, it is done. I wonder if you will like it. She placed the pouch on the desk, and whether Shen Wanxiao liked it or not was of little importance. What mattered was that she had fulfilled her promise. To her surprise, Shen Wanxiao picked up the pouch and examined it closely. His scrutinizing gaze left Shen Luan feeling inexplicably anxious. Your embroidery is quite good. I had thought you would heed fourth sister's words, believing that a woman need not invest her heart in learning anything. Shen Wanxiao lifted his gaze, the light in his eyes making Shen Luan's heart race. Shen Yu had indeed mentioned such sentiments to her before. In her previous life, she had absorbed them, spending her days idly without reading or practicing embroidery, ultimately becoming a laughingstock for her incompetence. Which had brought shame upon Shen Yuanqiu. It was only during her lonely and desolate days in the inner quarters that she realized that being a woman did not simply mean marrying someone to ensure a carefree life. It was then that she resolved to pick up the skills she should have learned and had been somewhat successful. Shen Luan lowered her head slightly, fidgeting with the handkerchief in her grasp. I do not fully believe fourth sister's words. I merely hope that you do not find my embroidery unsatisfactory. Shen Wanxiao placed the book pouch back on the desk. Your decision to enter the palace this time has finally opened your eyes. Some may appear to care for you, yet who knows their true intentions? I once thought you beyond redemption, but it seems there is still room for improvement. Shen Luan. Was he scolding her? Chapter 22. Like shadows following, Shen Wanxiao caught the fleeting glimmer of discontent on Shen Luan's face, a faint smile flitting across his features before vanishing. It is not easy to discern the meaning behind one's words. Very well, you may return now, but remember to be cautious in your dealings with others. We are all of our father's blood, and the differences should not be too great. Shen Luan could no longer contain herself. Was he subtly insulting her? Did he believe she was oblivious to his meaning? Thank you for your guidance, brother. Shen Luan shot him a sidelong glare before turning away, puffing up her cheeks. After all, she had crafted a book pouch for him. Had he summoned her merely to mock her in person as a form of gratitude? Wait a moment. Shen Luan halted her steps. Is there anything else you wish to instruct me? Brother? I heard you broke a paperweight last time. I have plenty here. Take this one back with you. As Shen Luan beheld the jade rabbit-shaped paperweight he extended towards her, smooth and radiant, it appeared to be quite valuable, especially appealing to her eye. Are you gifting this to me? I have too many paperweights and do not require this one. If you do not want it, I do. Thank you, brother. Shen Luan hurriedly interrupted him, stepping forward to take the paperweight in her hands. The cool, smooth touch brought her immense joy. Trading a book pouch for a beautiful paperweight was certainly not a loss, fearing he might utter more words of admonition. She hurriedly departed, her heart full of sincere appreciation. It seemed her brother was not as intimidating as she had once believed. In the past, had he kept his distance due to thinking her too dull to be salvaged? Miss, you are indeed the only sister of the second young master. He only wishes for your well-being. Shun Luan pondered this deeply, realizing that the rare opportunity for reconciliation still existed in the past. Chao Jin had discouraged her from interacting with her brother, yet perhaps now, the relationship between her and Shun Wanxiao could still be mended. A smile curled at the corners of Shun Luan's lips. But in the next instant, her heart plummeted into icy depths. Wanner, are you here to find Wanxiao? He should be in the study at this moment. Shin Yuenda approached her, and the presence of the person beside him made Shin Luan exert every ounce of strength to suppress her trembling. Why was Chao Jin appearing in the Shin household? In her previous life, she had never encountered him at this time. Why was he now alongside Shin Yuenda? Wanner, Shin Luan, her hands hidden within her sleeves, felt as if she were on the verge of breaking, and upon regaining her composure, she performed a shallow curtsy. Brother is indeed in the room. Does uncle have business with him? Shin Yuenda chuckled heartily. Intending to introduce someone to him, you may return. I shall go inside to find him. Shun Luan maintained her head bowed, seemingly upholding decorum in front of the male stranger, yet she could distinctly sense the gaze of Chao Jin lingering upon her. Unyielding as a shadow in such close proximity, Chao Jin observed Shin Luan, her head lowered, the delicate curve of her snow-white neck accentuating her youthful modesty, while her drooping lashes appeared to tremble gently. Unexpectedly, she seemed so innocent and bashful, a side he had never witnessed before. As Shin Yuenda stepped into Shun Wanxiao's courtyard, Chao Jin could only follow, but upon noticing some distance had formed, she seized the opportunity to glance back hurriedly, only to find Shin Luan still standing in place, unmoved. From a distance, Chao Jin could not discern the expression on Shin Luan's face, yet she saw that the latter had raised her head. Gazing in his direction, a surge of joy welled up within Chao Jin. Could it be that he had left a profound impression on her? If that were the case, his self-recommendation to enter the Shun family's scholarly pursuits was indeed a sagacious choice. Miss? What troubles you? Ziyin, noticing Shen Luan's prolonged stillness, could not help but step before her. Upon closer inspection, she was taken aback. How have you injured your lips? Chapter 23. How could he have that? Shen Luan's tongue softly brushed against her lip, the metallic tang of blood flooding her mouth, a flavor that seemed capable of awakening the darkest thoughts buried within one's heart. It was merely an accidental bite. It is of no consequence. I shall recover in a few days. She slowly turned, her expression blank as she made her way toward her courtyard. Years ago, when her elder sister was betrothed, it was then that Chao Jin suddenly sought her hand in marriage. Yet neither her grandmother nor mother held him in high regard. At that time, she had been preoccupied with her own matters, inadvertently allowing Chao Jin to seize the opportunity. Shun Luan suddenly raised a hand to touch her cheek. Smooth and unblemished, as if nothing was amiss. Yet, that scar seemed etched into her very bones. Unless it was erased with Chao Jin's blood, it would never fade away. Shun Luan inquired discreetly, discovering that in addition to Chao Jin, 2 other scholars from humble backgrounds were to partake in the Shin family's academic pursuits, both of whom expressed immense gratitude for the opportunity. Shun Yuenda's intentions were not difficult to deduce. Should these 2 scholars indeed succeed in their examinations, they would inevitably owe the Shin family a debt of gratitude, thereby becoming allies to the Shin household. Furthermore, Shun Luan overheard an unusual name, Heir Qinggu of the Guangyang Marquis. Have you truly verified this? Ziyin nodded, affirming, indeed, miss. How could the heir come to our family as scholarly pursuits? The Guangyang Marquis' lineage has always been martial, has it not? Shin Luan appeared perplexed. How would I know? What was Qinggu plotting? The Guangyang Marquis' lineage had been steeped in martial prowess for 3 generations, with heroes emerging from military exploits, earning their titles through merit, and holding hereditary nobility in the previous life. Qinggu had made a name for himself at a young age, repeatedly quelling banditry and conflicts, ultimately rising to prominence during the turmoil in Suizhou, presiding over the Grand Commander's office. Yet, he seemed closer to the 9th prince, making him a thorn in the 3rd prince's side. Had it not been for that incident, he would have been the youngest Grand Commander in history, wielding the power of the military. Yet, never had she heard of him attending any scholarly pursuits. Was he planning to abandon martial pursuits for literary ones? Knowing that Chao Jin was in the Shin family's scholarly pursuits, Shun Luan became increasingly contemplative, pondering why Chao Jin would come to the Shun household. At this moment, Chao Jian must have been working as an editor for several years. Although it was a trivial position, it was not merely nominal. What advantage could he derive from visiting the Shin family? This individual had never acted without a personal gain. Thus, his actions must be driven by a hidden agenda. Her uncle, known for his indifference to fame and fortune, must have been persuaded by Chao Jian for a compelling reason. What could it be? After isolating herself in the courtyard for several days, Shen Luan considered various scenarios, dismissing them one by one, until she arrived at a ludicrous hypothesis. If, in her previous life, Chao Jian had possessed the capability to garner her uncle's favor, he would not have been so blatantly scorned by the Shin family. Thus, the current Chao Jian had indeed acquired such abilities. How had he done so? Shen Luan gazed skyward, staring vacantly at the azure expanse above, her eyes gradually becoming hollow. The most improbable conjecture might indeed hold the truth. If so, suddenly, Shen Luan sprang to her feet, startling Ziyin, who was attending her. "Miss, what is the matter?" Shen Luan turned to her with a gentle smile. "It is nearly noon. My brothers must be weary from their studies. I shall prepare some sweet soup to refresh them, Yin." The young lady has become increasingly spontaneous. Surely, the servants could manage the sweet soup. Chapter 24. Going all out, Shen Luan did not personally prepare the soup. Having honed her culinary skills in her previous life solely to please the only man she could rely upon. Carrying the food box towards the front courtyard, Shen Luan timed her arrival perfectly. As the instructor had just called for a break, brother. Shen Luan's melodious voice drew the attention of everyone present. Seemingly unaware, she approached Shan Wenxiao's table, earnestly attempting to place the food box upon it. Shan Wenxiao effortlessly received it with one hand, setting it upon the table. "What brings you here?" Shen Luan beamed at him sweetly. "Knowing my brothers work hard in their studies, I specially made some sweet soup for you. The timing is just right for a refreshing drink." With a delightful smile, she opened the food box and presented a bowl of sweet soup to Shan Wenxiao. Nearby, Shen Jian teased, "Truly, my third sister is considerate. I wonder if there is a portion for me. Of course, I made plenty. If you do not mind, there is enough for everyone." Her innocent and lively demeanor radiated the charm of a sheltered young lady, unacquainted with the world. The maidservants had already begun distributing the sweet soup, and Shen Luan sat beside Shan Wenxiao, eagerly awaiting him to taste the soup. Shen Wenxiao was somewhat taken aback. In his memory, Shen Luan had never been this close to him. Could it be that a mere writing pouch and paperweight had transformed her nature? Yet, seeing the expectant expression on her face, he graciously finished the soup. "Too sweet. Next time, use less sugar, Shen Luan." Internally rolling her eyes, she replied obediently, "Understood." Chao Jian took only a sip, yet his pride swelled unceasingly. Shen Luan's culinary skills had not been impressive in the past. But later, in his quest to impress her, he had perfected his own cooking, and he was the only one who had tasted it. Once everyone had finished their soup, the maidservants collected the bowls. And Shan Wenxiao noticed Shen Luan still leaning over his table. "Do you intend to study with us?" Shen Luan scrunched her nose. "Brother, I brought you soup. Do you not have any response?" Shen Wenxiao's tone was cool. "What sort of response do you desire? Here, with ink, paper, and brushes, would you write a line of poetry for me? Consider it a reward for my visit." Shen Luan's smile was charming, yet her heart was pounding, preparing for a potential cold refusal from Shen Wenxiao. If he were unwilling, then perhaps she could appeal to her eldest brother, who would likely grant her this favor, right? Shen Wenxiao remained silent for a long moment, causing Shen Luan's smile to nearly freeze, until he finally sighed softly and began to spread out the paper. Shen Luan's heart leapt with joy. Was he truly giving her face? Had that bowl of soup contained some sort of love potion that rendered Shen Wenxiao dazed? With swift strokes, he penned a line of poetry, the elegant characters flowing with vigor and grace, a pleasure to behold. Shen Luan genuinely admired, "Brother, your handwriting is exquisite. I shall take it back to frame." Shen Wenxiao replied expressionlessly, "It is unnecessary. If it can benefit your writing, then it is indeed a good deed." Shen Luan. Was he indirectly implying that his own handwriting was poor? What was wrong with this brother? She had thought him to be unapproachable, yet it seemed he also enjoyed teasing others. Suppressing her murmurs of discontent, Shen Luan suddenly turned her gaze toward Shan Jian. "Eldest brother, you are much more understanding." He immediately grasped the intention in her eyes, chuckling. Does my third sister wish for me to write a line of poetry for you as well? After all, we have all enjoyed our sister's sweet soup. It is only fitting that we express our gratitude, is it not? At this moment, Shun Luan's admiration for Shan Jian reached its zenith, her eyes sparkling with excitement, prompting Shan Jian to laugh heartily. Very well, who could refuse such a request? As he laughed, he picked up his brush, and Shun Luan gently added, Eldest brother, may I choose a line for you to write? Why not? Shun Luan recited a line of poetry, and Shun Jian promptly inscribed it. Upon finishing, the previously silent Qin Gu chimed in. So, is it my turn now? Chapter 25. Special favor. Shan Luan's gaze shifted, recalling that Qin Gu always seemed to come and go in haste, exuding an air of a martial general. Yet at this moment, clad in a flowing robe, he bore a subtle smile that softened his angular features, revealing a hint of scholarly demeanor. I beg your pardon. Shun Luan gradually approached, her eyes cast down, avoiding direct contact with Qin Gu's gaze. Amused, Qin Gu observed her. What would Miss Shun have me write? Since I am to write, it must surely satisfy your expectations. Such a normal exchange. In her previous life, Shun Luan would never have given it a second thought. Others claimed Qin Gu treated her differently, yet she dismissed it entirely. After all, she shared a good rapport with Qin Shu. So it was only natural for Qin Gu to extend his goodwill towards her. Surely, there was nothing amiss. However, at present, whenever Qin Gu speaks, she perceives an elusive aura surrounding his words. After reciting a line of poetry, Qin Gu quickly composed a piece for her. His calligraphy starkly contrasted with Shan Wanxiao's, exuding the vigor and strength characteristic of a martial artist, flowing effortlessly yet brimming with power. Thank you, Your Highness. Finally, Shun Luan made her way to Chao Jin. Her countenance reflected the modesty and innocence befitting a young lady, as she dared not let her smile reveal any cracks, fearful of betraying the intense hatred that simmered in her eyes. Chao Jin, upon noticing her approach, nearly succumbed to the impulse of grasping her hand. The youthful, delicate, and enchanting Shun Luan stirred his heart, igniting a desire to immediately marry her and cherish her dearly. There was a barely perceptible tremor of excitement in Chao Jin's voice as he said, It is my honor to write poetry for Miss Shun. Shun Luan covered her lips with a handkerchief and chuckled lightly. It is I who am honored. Once you and the others achieve academic success, these verses will become treasured works, and I shall profit greatly. Her candidness elicited soft laughter from those present, finding her thoughts exceedingly endearing. Yet, Chao Jin's expression momentarily stiffened. He had no prospects for the imperial examination, having merely attained the status of a third-degree scholar and now languishing in the Hanlin Academy as an editor, without any notable achievements. But what did Shun Luan, a woman, truly understand? She likely believed that everyone, like her brother, was preparing for the examinations, leaving Chao Jin without a retort. Shun Luan remained all smiles. If it pleases you, could you write a line? The mist of dawn is heavy today. The landscape here is profound, which suits the gloomy rain of today. Chao Jin was momentarily dazed by her radiant smile as he dipped his brush to paper. The moment he inscribed the character line, Shun Luan's pupils dilated in shock, silently grateful that Chao Jin was focused on his writing and did not witness her expression. Once Chao Jin completed the piece, Shun Luan returned to her composed self, graciously expressing her thanks and instructing the maids to carry the writing away as she departed with decorum. Upon returning to her courtyard, Shun Luan instructed her attendants to place the poem on the table, then dismissed them, closing the door behind her, stating, I feel a bit weary and wish to rest for a while. Once the room fell silent, her gaze shifted to Chao Jin's line of poetry. The content was inconsequential. What mattered was the character line. The third prince, ambitious and eager for fame, had penned many verses to gain favor. To curry the prince's goodwill, Chao Jin had seized an opportunity to transcribe the prince's poems to present as a gift but had struggled with the character line. For some reason, the way the third prince wrote line was particularly unique, which led Chao Jin to practice diligently until he replicated it nearly perfectly, capturing the prince's attention. Henceforth, whenever Chao Jin wrote that character, it was always in the style favored by the third prince. Now, the Lan character before her mirrored exactly what Shun Luan had seen in her past life. Truly, the heavens were exceptionally kind to her. Shun Luan opened her palm. The wounds she had just begun to heal were once again punctured. The silk handkerchief entwined with flesh and blood, adhering to one another. Dully, she tore the silk away, blood beads oozing forth, yet she felt no pain whatsoever. How trivial this was! What pain could compare to being labeled a harlot behind her back? What agony could rival that poison that led to her untimely demise? The heavens seemed to fear she would not take action, deliberately placing this gift before her. How amusing indeed! Chapter 26. I am but a mundane being after returning from the palace. Shenluan had not gifted anything to Shenyu, which led her to cease visiting. Shenluan did not take the initiative to seek her out either, whenever Yuji subtly encouraged her to do so. Shenluan would feign understanding, expressing concern that perhaps she had inadvertently upset her younger sister, and it would be better to avoid further misfortune. When Shenyu became aware of this, her anger flared. Feeling utterly foolish and beyond reason, in the past, if she had not sought Shenluan for a period, Shenluan would have been exceedingly anxious, bringing gifts to appease her. Yet this time, she had grown stubborn. Was there something amiss? Shenyu, tired of waiting for Shenluan's overtures, found herself beset by Xinling's biting ridicule in the second house, leaving her no choice but to seek out Shenluan. When Shenluan saw her, her face lit up with surprise. Sister 4, what brings you here? I thought you were distancing yourself from me. I've been worried, unable to sleep soundly at night. Shenyu observed her vibrant complexion, seeing no signs of restlessness. Sister, please do not blame me. I was unwell recently and forgot to send someone to inform you. It is my fault. What you say is unfounded, Sister 4. Now that you are well, that is what matters most. Your health is paramount. Shenluan's cheerful smile made Shenyu roll her eyes inwardly, thinking her a simpleton, yet her face radiated with emotion. Please, Sister Yu, take a seat. Shenluan instructed Yuji to fetch some refreshments. Mother just sent me some fresh fruits today. I tasted them, and they were delightful. The tea is also freshly delivered by Mother, more palatable than in previous years. As the refreshments were served, a wave of jealousy washed over Shenyu. The Jean family truly had money to spare, sending such exquisite items to the residence of a stepdaughter. What could their intention be? The thought of her own tea being stale from previous years made Shenyu feel a sour taste rise in her throat. Was Shenluan really so thoughtless as to not send anything her way? Clearly, the provisions here were of high quality. Aunt San would never let substandard offerings pass, regardless of her true feelings. Lest she earn the reputation of mistreating her stepdaughter, Shenyu grasped Shenluan's hand, her eyes filled with concern. It is only a pity for you, dear sister. If your birth mother were still alive, what would all this matter? Gold and silver jewels cannot compare to a mother's love. My heart aches for you. Upon hearing such words, Shenluan felt a calmness wash over her, even stifling a laugh. It was only after becoming more sensible that she realized how innocent the Jean family truly was. She would forever be merely a nominal third madam in the Shen family, yet she treated Shenluan with such generosity. What a noble spirit and sense of justice! Shenluan sighed, withdrawing her hand from Shen Yu's grasp. Sister, did I touch upon a painful subject? Speaking of which, your birth mother was also unfortunate. Had she been alive, your circumstances would surely be better than they are now, given that she was Aunt Air's maid, and their bond must have been profound. Shenyu felt an overwhelming urge to slap Shenluan. Did she not realize her greatest taboo? How could she speak so freely? The fact that her birth mother was a maid was something Shenyu wished had never occurred. Shenluan, seemingly oblivious to Shenyu's stiffened expression, kindly poured tea for her. Am I not troubled for you, sister? Here, I possess only the mundane gifts sent by Mother. What a cruel fate we sisters share. Chapter 27. Surely, he will be pleased, Shenyu screamed internally. What a ridiculous notion of suffering. Was she displaying her treasures right before her eyes? No, Shenluan was far too simple-minded for such schemes. She was purely naive and ignorant. Shenyu fought to suppress her anger, knowing that the more Shenluan acted this way, the more she would become a target for ridicule outside. Shenyu's ever-changing expressions were utterly amusing to Shenluan, almost provoking laughter. By the way, Xian, have those poems been properly mounted? Xian nodded. Yes, Mississippi, they have all been mounted and safely stored. Shenluan patted her chest. That's splendid. These contain the works of talented young men. They may become rare treasures in the future. So do take care. Curious, Shenyu asked. Sister 3, what are you referring to? What treasures? Nothing much. Our family has opened a school, and uncle specifically invited someone to teach with my brothers. Even the heir of the Guangyang Marquis has been invited. Several of them are commendable, and Uncle is confident they will achieve great success in the upcoming examinations, so I shamelessly asked for a few of their works. Shen Luan spoke casually, but Shen Yu took note. She believed herself more mature than Shen Luan, having long understood how critical marriage was for women. Given Shen Yu's position, even within the scholarly Shin family, a concubine could not aspire to much higher. Typically marrying a modestly successful scholar, but Shen Yu was unwilling to accept such a fate. Her talents and beauty were not inferior to others. It was merely a matter of status. Given the opportunity, she could marry into any prominent family. Sister 3, I must say a few words. As an unwed lady of the Shin family, how can you present yourself before men? If others were to find fault and spread rumors, it would tarnish the reputation of the Shin daughters. Shen Luan laughed, waving her hand dismissively. Sister, you worry too much. I merely delivered sweet soup to my brothers and casually collected these works. Both my brothers were present. What could be inappropriate about that? Her smile was warm as she added, I only confide this in you because of our sisterly bond. There are a few truly exceptional students at the school, and they seem destined for bright futures, so please do keep this between us. Shen Luan winked at Shen Yu, her cleverness causing Shen Yu to feel a pang of frustration. So, if this matter were to leak, it would surely trace back to her? Shen Luan seemed to mention it in passing, quickly shifting topics, while Shen Yu pondered deeply. The following day, Shen Luan learned that Shen Yu had prepared some pastries and headed to the front courtyard. A smile slowly crept onto her lips. Sister 4 has such thoughtful intentions. He will surely be delighted. Xian tilted her head. He? Naturally. I speak of my brothers. As a sister, it is only right to think of them. They will undoubtedly be pleased. Shen Yu crafted the delicacies with her own hands, freshly baked, and she felt particularly confident in her culinary skills. However, Shen Wenxiao had always been indifferent towards her, and the pastries delivered to his table remained untouched. Fortunately, her elder brother, Shun Jian, was quite gracious. He was pleasantly surprised to discover that his fourth sister possessed such remarkable skills, rivaling those of the finest pastry shops in town. Shen Yu blushed at the praise, responding modestly that as long as they were edible, that was sufficient. She discreetly scanned the gathering, feeling somewhat perplexed. Where was the extraordinary quality that Shen Luan had claimed everyone here possessed? Perhaps she simply lacked experience. For she found every man she encountered to be remarkable. The only truly exceptional individual was the heir of the Guangyang Marquis, yet Shen Yu dared not even entertain the thought of him in her mind. As she withdrew her gaze, she collided with another person, offering a gentle smile. To her surprise, he did not shy away but returned a knowing smile that sent a shiver down her spine. Chao Jin's knowing smile made Shen Yu uneasy, as if his eyes could see right through her. Truly, the young masters of the Shen family were fortunate, with each of their sisters holding them in such high regard. A fact that filled Chao Jin with envy. His heartfelt admiration for Shen Yu transformed her impression of him in an instant. She curtsied slightly, stating that he overestimated her. It was merely her duty as a sister. Previously, her third sister had sent sweet soup through the servants, and she had no particular talents, only managing to make some pastries for him, hoping he would not ridicule her efforts. Chao Jian chuckled inwardly, noting Shen Yu's continued vanity and her evident jealousy towards Shen Luan. Yet, were it not for her, he would have had no means to wed Shen Luan in his past life. Whenever he encountered her, she seemed like a mere clown. The scar on Shen Luan's face was a mark left by Shen Yu's own hand. With a smile on his face, Chao Jin's gaze swept over the same spot on Shen Yu's face. Perhaps this time, such a scar should also find its way onto her visage. Shen Luan had only encountered Chao Jin once during her studies at home, and since then, she had not seen him again. She was in no hurry, knowing that he would inevitably seek her out if he wished to regain his former status. Meanwhile, Shen Luan remained with her grandmother, recounting the amusing tales of the maids to elicit laughter from Zhang Shi. When did you become so adept at entertaining others? Her grandmother mused. In the past, her granddaughter had caused her much worry, and now she reflected on how unnecessary that had been, wishing to make amends. You? Zhang Shi embraced her, noting how much Shen Luan resembled Yuan Xiao in her current disposition, possessing a knack for bringing joy to herself with her clever tongue. After a while, Yu Shi and Lu Shi arrived with the young ladies, prompting Shen Luan to temper her playfulness and stand obediently by her grandmother's side. Upon entering, Yu Shi immediately spotted her, a smile gracing her face. Luaner is here with the old lady? I knew you were dutiful. But the old lady is accustomed to peace and quiet. Too much commotion would not be fitting. Zhang Shi waved her hand dismissively. It is of no concern. Luaner is well-mannered and keeps me company, which is delightful. But what brings you here at this hour? Seeing Zhang Shi defend Shen Luan so ardently, Yushi smirked inwardly, her smile unwavering. She intended to discuss a matter with her mother. The Du family matron has invited me to a banquet, and I plan to take Qing girl with me. Upon hearing this, Lu Shi interjected, the Du family's invitation? It must be a grand affair, sister-in-law. Why not bring Ling girl along as well, so she may broaden her horizons? Shun Yu, standing nearby, felt a pang of anxiety. She too wished to attend, for such an event could present an opportunity for her to catch the eye of a prospective suitor. Yushi's smile dimmed slightly. It is not that I do not wish to take Ling girl, but this banquet differs from previous ones, with attendees of high status in Yin City. If we bring too many people, it could lead to unexpected complications, which would be quite embarrassing. Oh, sister-in-law, do you imply that I cannot raise my daughter properly? How could Linger cause any issues? She has attended palace events, after all. What kind of banquet could she not handle? Sister-in-law, you know why I am bringing Qing girl. Why stir trouble? Yushi found Lu Shi rather unsatisfactory, akin to a common woman from the market. She intended to assist Shen Qing in finding a suitable match, without the burden of extra girls. Lu Shi chuckled lightly, sister-in-law, it is not that I am saying Linger and Qing girl are only a year apart. Even Luan girl at this age should be able to attend such events without issue. Why bring only one out? Do you believe that other young ladies are not worthy of being Shen family daughters in your eyes? Zhang Shi placed her prayer beads gently on the low table beside her. The sound cutting off Yushi's words, if everyone wishes to go, then let them all go. Yushi's eyes widened slightly. Mother, you are not responsible for watching over so many children. Each will go with their respective guardians. Just remember that when out in public, you represent the Shen family's reputation. Should anyone tarnish that, I shall hold them accountable. Yushi breathed a sigh of relief. Her daughter understood. Lu Shi was also pleased. Suddenly hearing Shen Yu's timid voice ask, Grandmother, may I accompany you? Everyone shall go. Lu Shi felt displeased, as she had no desire to take Shen Yu along. However, since the old lady had spoken, it would be inappropriate to leave her at home. Lu Shi shot Shen Yu an annoyed glance. Keep your mouth shut. Shen Yu paid no heed. For as long as she could accompany them, she was willing to endure a few glares. The daughters of the third house were all set to go, and Jian Shi received the news as well. The Du family matron's banquet would surely attract a great crowd. Jian Shi was filled with reluctance. Such occasions were rife with insincerity and pretense, leaving her puzzled as to why anyone would be so eager to partake. Shen Luan had long understood Jian Shi's nature and smiled. Mother, you need not accompany me. I am merely going to fill a seat. That will not do. Although I do not relish it, I can manage. Such occasions require decorum. The last set of attire I prepared for you must be out of style by now. Tomorrow, I shall take you out to purchase a new ensemble. Shen Luan was taken aback, but there is no need for such extravagance. I still have many of the jewelry you gifted me that remain unused. Those can be kept. If you find anything unsuitable, you may reward the servants as you see fit. What is more important for a young lady going out than her attire and adornments? Rest assured, Mother will not let you fall behind. Jian Shi, filled with exuberance, felt confident in her financial standing, managing the family's dowries so successfully that it was no exaggeration to say they were thriving. It was rare for Shen Luan to draw closer to her. She felt no hesitation in showering the delicate girl with wealth. She reveled in the process. The next day, Jian Shi indeed took Shen Luan out, heading straight for the largest jewelry shop in Yin City, the Diansui Pavilion. Upon their arrival, the shopkeeper beamed at the sight of Jian Shi, his face creasing into a smile. Madam Shun, Miss Shun, please, come inside. The private room has just been prepared. Jian Shi strode in with great elegance, while Shen Luan followed behind, suppressing a smile. Previously, she had found her stepmother's demeanor to be rather coarse and vulgar, particularly with her overwhelming display of wealth. Yet now, she increasingly perceived her stepmother as someone who lived life with clarity, indifferent to societal judgment and free-spirited, which was quite admirable. Once inside the private room, the shopkeeper swiftly presented tea and snacks of the finest quality, and then presented the catalog of jewelry. Madam Shun, please take a look. These are the newest designs from our store, guaranteed to be the finest in Yin City. If you can find another, I shall have my head cut off and kicked like a ball. Jane Sure casually replied, Why would I want to kick your head? That would only dirty my shoes. Yes, yes, my words are foolish. Leave us. Come back once we have made our selections. Chapter 30. The Gift of Fate. The shopkeeper exited. And Jane Sure immediately beckoned to Shenluan. This one is nice. I think it suits you. The young lady is fresh and vibrant, and this design is also quite novel. These styles are truly unique. Let us have one of each. Shenluan felt exasperated, gently pulling on Jane Sure's sleeve. Mother, I have more jewelry than I can wear. Why waste money on so much? Did you not intend to send some to Shenyu? Have you not sent any recently? Jane Sure's keen gaze caused Shenluan to freeze. Did her mother truly know everything? Jane Sure chuckled. I remember everything I send you. If they appear with Shenyu, it is naturally because you sent them. But if you know that, why do you keep sending me things? Since you have given to Shenyu, I worry you might not have enough for yourself. Shenluan felt a pang in her heart. Jane Sure's light-hearted tone seemed to convey the most natural of sentiments. Yet she was not her biological mother, and yet she was so generous in her considerations for her. In her past life, when she had suffered a facial injury, it was Jane Sure who had been most distressed and anxious, even going to great lengths to seek out a renowned physician for her treatment. But at that time, with various matters intertwined, and with Shenluan having long been at odds with her, she ultimately never got to see the physician. In hindsight, Jane Sure had done everything a legitimate mother could, yet she had never expressed gratitude. Mother, I previously. What has passed is in the past. There is no need to bring it up again. Jane Sure interrupted Shenluan, her eyes shining with a kindness that could see through the world's affairs. The bond between us as mother and daughter is a gift from heaven. That is enough. Suddenly, she broke into laughter and pointed at the catalog. I still think it is best to have one of each. To avoid the hassle of choosing, Shenluan. In matters such as these, no one can outmaneuver the Jin family. Wealth grants one the power to act at will. Summoning a servant, Jin conveyed her intentions, which instantly brought delight to the attendant's countenance. This guest, indeed, was cherished at their Dian Shui Gu, akin to a deity of wealth. Please wait a moment. These items are all in the shop. I shall fetch them for you at once. And once the remaining pieces are completed by the craftsman, I will send them directly to your residence. The attendant beamed as he exited the private room, instructing others to deliver the new products to Jean. Wait a moment, that jeweled cloison bracelet was first spotted by us. How can it be taken away? A maid intercepted his path. Standing behind her was a young lady, elegantly dressed, clearly the daughter of a prominent family. I beg your pardon, but it has already been purchased by someone else. On what grounds? We clearly laid eyes on it first. Is this how you conduct business? In Yin City, where royal relatives and noble families were commonplace. The attendant dared not provoke. He smiled ingratiatingly. My lady, that bracelet was claimed early on, but the buyer had not come to collect it, so it remained in the shop. Alas, they have now returned to take it. Might I suggest you explore other styles available? The maid felt her mistress had been wronged and persisted. If it was displayed, it is for sale. My lady has taken a liking to it. Do you not intend to sell it? The young woman spoke softly. Jin Xiao, go inquire who the buyer of the bracelet is and negotiate with them. If they are willing to part with it, we shall certainly offer compensation. The attendant rolled his eyes inwardly. That buyer was the deity of wealth for Dian Shui Gu. What compensation could suffice? The maid raised her chin haughtily towards the attendant. Come along. My lady rarely finds a piece of jewelry she desires. We must persuade them to part with it. Chapter 31. No, the attendant, left with no choice, realized the young lady had claimed to be the daughter of the left minister. He could not afford to offend either side. With a resigned sigh, he turned to lead them, allowing them to discuss the matter amongst themselves. Jian was conversing with Shenluan in the private room, reminiscing about Shun Wenshao. That child sometimes makes me uneasy. His face is always stern, and I hardly dare to breathe when speaking to him. Jian patted her chest. He certainly wasn't like that as a child. At 4 or 5 years old, he was quite sweet, calling out to everyone. I wonder how he transformed into such a mature figure. Shenluan leaned on the table, laughing. Did my brother truly have such a childish phase? I thought he was born with this demeanor. Of course not. He was a delightful child. He would send you whatever rare trinkets he received. Once, someone gifted him a rare candy, and he saved it for you, only for it to melt in his hand. The sight of his sulking face had me in stitches. Jean unabashedly recounted Shun Wenshao's childhood shortcomings. sharing stories that Shen Luan had never known. And she lamented internally, realizing how much joy she had missed in her previous life. Suddenly, a knock came at the door of the private room. "Madam Shen, there is a matter." Before he could finish, the door swung open and a maid entered, standing at the threshold. "I have come to pay my respects to Madam Shen. I am a servant from the left minister's residence, accompanying my young mistress to Dian Shui Gu. It appears a bracelet she desires has already been purchased by you. My lady is quite fond of that bracelet, so I came to inquire if you might consider parting with it." Jan glanced at her and replied curtly, "No, you may leave, Jan Xiao." Shen Luan felt an inexplicable urge to laugh. Jin's brusque response brought her an unexpected sense of relief. "Madam Shen, my lady has approached you in a courteous manner. Might you not be a touch unreasonable?" Jin's expression remained impassive. "Your lady has inquired, and I have given my response. What further questions do you have?" She was disinclined to engage in further discourse with the maid. Her gaze drifting to the attendant. "Is it customary for Dian Shui Gu to entertain such irrelevant individuals before its esteemed guests? Summon your manager." The attendant hastily moved to escort Jian Xiao out. But she refused to be humiliated in such a manner. "Madam Shen, must you truly be so unreasonable? We approached you with respect, yet you show us none. As the Shen family not of scholarly repute?" Shen Luan felt a surge of anger and opened her mouth to speak, but was halted by Jin's raised hand. "What are you? How dare you speak so audaciously before me? The lack of decorum and upbringing displayed by a servant of the left minister is truly disheartening. How dare you slander the Shen family? Is it the case that the minister's household lacks proper teachings?" With a commanding tone, she ordered the family attendants stationed at the door to detain the maid. "Take her to the minister's residence and inform them of her actions, her audacity and unreasonable behavior, which tarnishes the reputation of the Shen family. We are a loyal household, praised by the emperor himself, and yet a mere maid dares to question us. Inquire if the left minister condones such insolence." "Yes," the maid squealed in fright, attempting to escape, but those by Jin's side were no ordinary attendants. They were skilled individuals she had hired with her own funds, and they would not allow a mere girl to flee. They covered her mouth and dragged her away, leaving the attendant dumbfounded. "Madam Shen, what of your manager? This matter today shall not pass easily." The attendant's face paled as he hurried away to summon the manager. Chapter 32. Majestic. Only then did Jin return to her usual leisurely demeanor. "Though your father is no longer with us, his name still holds great weight. Remember this. In the face of adversity, one must not hesitate to place blame. The larger the accusation, the more potent its effect." She scoffed disdainfully. These people are obsessed with their own reputations, unwilling to let even the slightest fault slip. Shen Luan was in awe of her mother's formidable presence. "Your praise amuses me. This is nothing. I engage in business with these officials, and over time, it becomes rather mundane." Her mother was the daughter of a merchant from Jiangnan, accustomed to the ways of the wealthy from a young age, and she had always aspired to be a person of privilege and leisure. Thus, marrying into the seemingly prestigious Shen family, she accepted her role with indifference. "Now that you are no longer a child, there are lessons I must impart to you. I simply lacked the opportunity before, but if you wish, I shall teach you bit by bit." "Thank you, mother." Shen Luan felt immense gratitude for Jin's willingness to embrace her. Realizing how fortunate her life truly was, once the manager arrived, he profusely apologized in front of Jin and Shen Luan, reprimanding the attendant for his misconduct. "Madam Shen, please do not be upset. It is this useless fellow who has caused you distress. Today, everything you wish to purchase will be offered at a discount." Jin casually fiddled with a hairpin in her hand. "Do you think I am in need of a few coins? And no, that is not the intention. I came to acquire jewelry, yet my good mood has been spoiled. Do your attendants not know what is available for sale? Must the customers negotiate amongst themselves? Am I here to haggle?" Jean was relentless, her words leaving the manager flustered. She had finally enjoyed a moment of closeness with Shen Luan, only to have it disrupted. The manager, sweating profusely, continued to apologize, explaining that the daughter of the left minister had wished to see them but had been intercepted by the staff. He promised that such an incident would never happen again. Ultimately, Jean purchased the jewelry she desired, saving a considerable amount of money. As they left, Jean remarked from the carriage, "Though we are women, we need not always yield in the face of adversity. Sometimes, being assertive can instill fear and command respect. Your previous demeanor was far too gentle, which made you seem easy to bully. I understand, mother. Shen Luan wholeheartedly agreed. Had she learned from Jean in her previous life, perhaps she would not have faced such dire consequences. Upon returning to the Shen residence, it was not long before several individuals from the left minister's household arrived. Madam Shen, the master has sent an old servant to apologize personally. The matron and steward knelt humbly, bowing repeatedly. The master was furious upon learning of the incident and has severely punished Jean Xiao, intending to sell her off. The young ladies in the household also recognized their mistake and have been confined for reflection. The master holds the Shen family in the highest regard and wishes to convey his sincere apologies. Jean did not make things difficult for them, acknowledging their apology and stating that they merely needed to manage their household better in the future. However, her uproar had sent Yushur into a frenzy. Is Jean truly foolish? How could she offend the left minister? If he harbors resentment, what will become of your household? Chapter 33. Touching heaven and earth, Yushur paced anxiously within her chamber, observing Qing, who seemed ready to speak. Yet Jean had caused such a commotion over a mere bracelet. She had more than enough bracelets to adorn an entire arm. Shen Yuanda frowned. Do not be so loud. What is wrong with third brother and sister-in-law taking a stand against the left minister's servant slander? If that maid were to appear before me, I would certainly deliver a swift kick. Are you unconcerned about the consequences? A scholar must possess a certain pride. Yushur nearly spat blood in exasperation. What good is pride if it cannot sustain one's life? Shen Yuanda, self-satisfied, continued to exclaim praises. Exclaiming, look at the literary talent of Chao Jin. His insight is remarkable, even foreseeing future upheavals, considering every aspect with meticulous care. After extolling for a while, he sighed, lamenting, alas, with my standing, I cannot offer him any assistance. Otherwise, this individual would surely capture the favor of the nobility. Shen Yuanda wallowed in his private melancholy for a moment before regretfully setting aside Chao Jin's work. Chao Jin was filled with anticipation. The piece he entrusted to Shen Yuanda was one he had polished repeatedly. Brimming with confidence, he subtly pointed to the impending turbulence within the court, articulated with gentle words yet profound meaning. Anyone with even a modicum of discernment would undoubtedly be moved by his talent. He held high hopes for the Shen family. In his previous life, his ascent had begun with them. It was because of the Shen family that he had steadily risen to the position he desired. Eventually catching the eye of the third prince in this life, he need not wait until after marrying Shen Luan to take action. He could leverage his past experiences to earn the Shen family's regard sooner. By the time his status became exalted, he might not even need to propose. The Shen family would willingly present Shen Luan before him. Chao Jin's eyes sparkled with desire. Just a fleeting glance at Shen Luan from the Shen family rendered him unable to forget her. That delicate, innocent, and enchanting Shen Luan was like a tender bud blossoming in spring, wielding a fatal allure over Chao Jin. Imagining a future where he married Shen Luan, she would smile at him with her exquisite beauty and express her admiration with affectionate words. Leaving Chao Jin unable to contain himself, trembling with delight beneath the covers. The invitations from the Du family had always garnered significant attention in Yin City. The matron of the Du family was an extraordinary individual. As the daughter of a former duke, her status was esteemed, yet she remained unmarried to this day. Her lineage rendered her beyond reproach, and discussions of her often centered on her exceptional, unearthly nature. However, this remarkable woman, who had not yet wed, took great pleasure in creating opportunities for the unmarried youth of Yin City. It was nothing short of awe-inspiring. The Du matron's unique passion was never concealed. And gradually, her gatherings became a customary affair. Receiving an invitation was considered a mark of status. Families with eligible youths eagerly sought to attend, hoping to forge promising matches. Shen Luan had also attended in her previous life. Though it was not a pleasant memory, for someone timid by nature, who dared not lift her head in crowded places without Shen Yu by her side, such gatherings were akin to a nightmare. Shen Luan silently derided her former self for her lack of ambition. This bracelet shines brightly. It will surely look beautiful on your wrist. Jean Shi meticulously selected jewelry for Shen Luan's attendance at the banquet, explaining that first impressions mattered greatly. One must not allow others to perceive them as lacking. A young lady must never compromise on her attire and adornments. Shen Luan absorbed her words, surprised to discover Jean Shi's keen eye for coordination. After selecting the garments and accessories, They complemented Shun Luan's temperament perfectly. Why had she once deemed herself to possess such coarse taste? It was all Shin Yu's fault. Thank you, mother, but I am still quite young. My attendance at the banquet is merely to accompany others and need not be so grand. Why not? Jian Shi raised her chin defiantly. It is precisely because you are young that you should see and experience more. To have an understanding beforehand. Otherwise, you may find yourself at the mercy of all sorts of characters. She touched the hairpin atop her head, adding, though I do not particularly enjoy such occasions, I don't mind putting on a facade for your sake. Having spent so much time managing affairs in the inner quarters, she had nearly forgotten that she, too, had once been the brightest star at such gatherings. On the day of the banquet, as Jian Shi and Shen Luan arrived, Yu Shi began to feel uneasy. Was the third household doing this on purpose? They were not the main characters, yet they dressed so conspicuously. What were they trying to achieve? Ah, elder sister, shall we leave now? Yu Shi pursed her lips. The second household has yet to arrive. I don't understand why we must follow them, lest outsiders think our Shen daughters are eager to marry. Jian Shi, adjusting the bracelet on her wrist, countered, isn't that precisely the point? Are we to let good families overlook us? Why aren't you anxious, elder sister? If you are not, we need not attend at all. We are merely going to broaden our horizons. Yu Shi fell silent. She had never bested Jian Shi in a battle of wits. After a while, Lu Shi hurriedly arrived with Shen Ling and Shen Yu. Younger sister, can you not keep track of time? If you do not wish to come, you could have simply sent word. If we are late to the Du matron's banquet, others may think the Shen family is seeking to curry favor. Oh, but here we are. Since we are late, let us hurry. Elder sister, what more is there to discuss? Lu Shi rushed toward the carriage, while Shen Luan turned her head, covering her mouth with a handkerchief to stifle her laughter. How had she never realized before how amusing her family was? The Du matron's banquet was held at a spacious polo field on the outskirts of the city, where one could engage in various activities such as polo, throwing pots, archery, kite flying, and boating, ensuring that guests would not find the event dull. Once the carriage arrived, Jian Shi and Shen Luan disembarked and entered the venue. Yu Shi eagerly led Shen Qing away from them. Upon witnessing this, Lu Shi also wished to take Shen Ling for a stroke of luck, but she still had Shen Yu by her side. As Shen Yu's gaze shifted, she aimed to approach Shen Luan. But Jian Shi was quicker, saying, younger sister, I rarely come to places like this. I find it quite unfamiliar. I shall take Luan to explore. Without giving Shen Yu a chance to respond, she took Shen Luan's hand and turned to walk away. Shen Yu bit her lip, glancing timidly at Lu Shi. Lu Shi shot her a glare and took Shen Ling toward the crowd, causing Shen Yu to ponder briefly before following. These activities are merely remnants of my past. Jian Shi, feeling bored, picked up an arrow, squinted one eye, and skillfully tossed it, landing it squarely in the pot. Shen Luan clapped enthusiastically, exclaiming, Mother, you are truly impressive. Jian Shi wiped her hands, dismissing it as nothing special. Practice makes perfect. However, she hadn't anticipated that after so many years, the amusement would still hold no novelty. Banquets typically consisted of elders bringing their children together, allowing acquaintances to gather and introduce one another to unfamiliar families while subtly assessing the younger generation. Yu Shi was reluctant to accompany Jian Shi and Lu Shi because she fundamentally disdained them. What connections could they possibly forge? She felt embarrassed to be seen with them. Yet Lu Shi, with her disregard for propriety, brought along her two daughters, trailing behind Ushi in the presence of outsiders. Yu Shi could not openly confront her, which only added to her frustration. However, Jian Shi, with Shen Luan in tow, seemed to vanish from sight, likely aware of her own standing. Little did anyone expect that at this moment, Jian Shi was engaged in lively conversation with several ladies. Madam Shen, your insights are remarkable. I had merely heard of these exotic perfumes and never imagined you would be so well-versed. Jian Shi covered her lips, laughing lightly. Oh, I've only encountered them occasionally. I have some at home. And if you are genuinely curious, I can have someone send you some. Is this truly so? Madam Shen replied, genuinely impressed. Had I known you earlier, I would have sought your acquaintance much sooner, Shen Luan observed in awe. Jian Shi's demeanor in the Shen family was typically carefree, unconcerned with trivial matters, living for her own enjoyment. If anyone dared to upset her, she would unflinchingly retaliate without a second thought. Yet at this moment, she appeared to possess an innate charm, engaging effortlessly with others, drawing their attention. In just a short time, 3 or 4 individuals had already expressed eagerness to befriend her. Shen Luan gained newfound insight into her mother-esque capabilities. Luan, come over and greet these ladies. Jian Shi beckoned to Shen Luan, who approached and performed a graceful curtsy, her every movement elegant and poised. The guests understood that Shen Luan and Jian Shi were not biologically related. Yet witnessing their seamless interaction left them hesitant to comment further. Aware of their unspoken thoughts, Jian Shi encouraged Shen Luan to mingle with her peers. I shall endeavor to transform these muddled perceptions in their minds. Ah, it seems Miss Qin has also arrived. I heard she went to the lakeside. Luan, why don't you go and take a look? Shen Luan agreed and departed. Once she left, a particularly warm smile graced Jian Shi's face as she prepared to begin her campaign of persuasion. Beside the polo field lay a sizable lake, where several boats were moored, freshly cleaned that morning. Shen Luan strolled with Zi Yin toward the lakeside, passing several young ladies who were joyfully flying kites. The innocent laughter lightened the hearts of all who heard it. Miss, once we see Miss Qin, let us come here to fly kites as well. We have prepared beautiful swallow-shaped ones for you in the carriage. We shall see. Such a naive and innocent pastime had long been untouched by her, and she wondered if she could ever indulge in it again. Shen Luan was walking along quite well when suddenly, several people blocked her path. Among them was a young lady dressed in a vibrant, embroidered skirt adorned with butterflies, smiling sweetly. Miss Shin-san, what a surprise to see you here. Shen Luan racked her memory but found no recollection of this girl. May I ask who you are? The girl's smile faltered momentarily, then she giggled. Oh, Miss Shin-san, how forgetful you are. But I understand. Considering how long you've been cooped up at home, I thought after you rushed back home last time, you wouldn't attend such gatherings again. Shen Luan gazed at her exaggerated laughter with a calm demeanor, silently reminiscing. In truth, there was no need to recall. There were only a few instances that pierced her heart, like the jabs about her status as an illegitimate daughter, which were only amusing as long as no elders were present. How could Shen Luan bear it back then? She wished for a crack in the ground to swallow her whole. Hence, before the banquet concluded, she hastily devised an excuse to leave and cried bitterly upon returning home. I apologize, but I truly do not remember your name. Perhaps I have met too many people and cannot recall those who are unremarkable. Please do not hold it against me. Shen Luan smiled gently. I'm rather shy and do not enjoy conversing with strangers. Might you grant me some space? Chapter 36. Allow me to yield to you. The girl could no longer maintain her smile. Shen Luan, how have you changed so much during our time apart? Your manners are utterly lacking. It's evident that no one at home has taught you proper decorum. You should be aware of your shortcomings and avoid embarrassing yourself in public. How curious, my dear, that I have always prided myself on my good manners. At least I possess more decorum than you. Have you ever heard the saying, a good dog does not block the way? Shen Luan deepened her smile, fully aware of her unpopularity, yet choosing to provoke further. The Shen family has no such customs. Might I inquire which esteemed family you hail from? I shall ask my mother to investigate. For such family teachings are indeed rare. Do you dare insult me? Shen Luan chuckled lightly. Are you upset? I merely referred to a dog, and you seem to take offense. Why the rush? The group of girls surrounding them fell silent. In such a setting, there was no necessity for direct confrontation. Shen Luan, lacking any urgency to depart, wore a cheerful expression, appearing composed and polite as she engaged in light conversation. In stark contrast, the girl opposite her was turning pale with rage, her anger nearly igniting. How dare you, Shen Luan? I thought you were a simpleton, but you are surprisingly sharp-tongued. I misjudged you. Then I must thank you for your gracious estimation of my wit. It is indeed a rare pleasure to receive such an acknowledgement. Leisurely, Shen Luan accepted a fan from Ziyun, partially concealing her face. Why do you refuse to share your name? Do you find it too difficult to utter? A nearby girl, unable to contain her curiosity, interjected. This is the second daughter of the left minister. Oh, how delightful. It seems we are quite fated. Shen Luan's lips curled into a smile. Just recently, the left minister sent someone to my family to apologize, claiming that his daughters would reflect upon their behavior at home. Have you heard of this? Which of your esteemed family members has the audacity to seize what belongs to others? A girl in a green dress widened her eyes. Sister Xia, did you not go out the other day? She abruptly clamped her mouth shut, panic flooding her large eyes at having spoken out of turn. Xia Zhiqiu's face shifted from green to white, her gaze filled with venomous intent. She had come here intentionally to provoke Shen Luan, her coveted bracelet now adorning Shen Luan's wrist, appearing even more exquisite in her possession. After being sold off, Xia Zhiqiu had endured her father's scolding and was now confined at home, forced to copy texts. If she did not find a way to vent her pent-up anger today, she felt she might suffocate. Her previous misstep at the Pointing Emerald Pavilion was due solely to the presence of Madame Shun San. Without her, what was Shen Luan? Just a few words could send her crying and fleeing. Xia Zhiqiu planned to mock her thoroughly, ensuring Shen Luan would feel utterly humiliated and apologize to her. Yet now, she had become the subject of ridicule herself. Shen Luan's eyes, peeking out from behind the fan, seemed contemplative. So, it was indeed you, the second daughter, whom my mother encountered that day. She scrutinized Xia Zhiqiu from head to toe, sighed lightly. In this case, I must concede my fault. Had I known how desperately you wished for this bracelet, I would have gladly yielded it to you. I possess several others of similar quality. Do you still desire one? Shen Luan extended her hand slightly, the bracelet on her wrist glimmering like crystal, accentuating her fair skin, which was as delicate as jade. Onlookers exchanged glances filled with curiosity, wondering how Xia Zhiqiu had failed to seize the bracelet. Had the Xia family truly come to apologize? And now Xia Zhiqiu was confined. Chapter 37. No escape. Their exchange had divulged far too much information, enough to fuel gossip for days. Mark my words, your nature will surely bring you retribution. Xia Zhiqiu, her face flushed, turned sharply and left, unable to remain for another moment. Shen Luan gently waved her handkerchief behind her. Farewell, Miss Xia.as for retribution. She had no fear. She herself was a form of it. The other girls who had accompanied Xia Zhiqiu exchanged glances, unsure whether to pursue her or to engage with Shen Luan. Shen Luan, however, remained unfazed. Do any of you have further matters to discuss? In unison, they stepped aside, allowing her to pass, and Shen Luan performed a slight bow, accompanied by Ziyun as they walked away. Who had spread the rumor that the Shun family's third daughter was easily bullied? Yet, indeed, she had left the previous gathering without much ado. Could it be that there were other circumstances at play? Just look at her demeanor. Was it truly as simple as a mere few words sending her home in tears? I suspect it is Xia Zhiqiu who will be crying this time. The girls shared a knowing glance, relieved they had not been the targets of Shen Luan's sharp tongue. It turned out that the third daughter of the Shen family was quite an intriguing character. The girl in the green dress smiled faintly, her earlier panic having dissipated, as she continued to watch Shen Luan's figure fade into the distance. Ziyun was becoming increasingly agitated. Her gaze towards Shen Luan was filled with admiration, making it impossible for Shen Luan to ignore. What is it? Do I have flowers on my face? Miss, you were simply magnificent. Those people clearly came with ill intentions, yet you suffered no loss at all. I was sweating bullets on your behalf. Ziyun presented her handkerchief to Shen Luan, which was thoroughly soaked with perspiration. Shen Luan playfully chided her. Is this truly the extent of your anxiety? If someone seeks trouble, I would be remiss to grant them their wish. Indeed, it is true. You seldom venture out, and every time you do, the fourth miss leaves you to fend for yourself. Ziyun pouted in complaint. The young lady was indeed timid. And with each incident where she found herself alone, trouble seemed to follow. Over time, her courage waned, and she became increasingly reluctant to step outside. Shen Luan smiled as she gazed ahead, realizing it was all Shen Yu's design. To cultivate her into a timid creature, Shen Luan began to suspect that some of those troublemakers had been sent by Shen Yu herself. Shen Yu always appeared at her most vulnerable moments to rescue her, which had once moved Shen Luan deeply, fostering a sense of trust and reliance. Yet now, it seemed Shen Yu was too preoccupied with her own affairs. Shen Yu trailed behind Lu Shi, who was in turn beside Yu Shi. Whenever Yu Shi engaged in conversation, she would invariably interject. Also mentioning Shen Ling, Shen Yu seized the opportunity to assert her presence. Yu Shi grew increasingly exasperated, but had to maintain the Shen family's image in public, leading to a lively yet tumultuous interaction among them. As Shen Luan strolled, she soon caught sight of the lake shimmering beyond the thicket, but suddenly her steps halted. Approaching her was a figure, causing her skin to prickle with unease. How could Qin Gu be here? Was he alone? Shouldn't he be with the other boys, engaged in horseback riding and archery? Shen Luan's once clear mind began to whirl in a panic. Her immediate instinct was to flee. Just as her foot shifted, she heard Qin Ji's voice, clear and resonant. "Miss Shun." His tone was slightly husky yet commanding, making it impossible for Shun Luan to pretend she hadn't heard. Thus, her feet remained planted, her body half-turned, slowly returning to face him. Qin Gu approached her step by step, clearly aware that she had intended to ignore him. With only one path before her, how could she turn back midway if not to evade him? Chapter 38. What a coincidence. Qin Gu stood before Shen Luan. "Miss Shen, are you heading to the lakeside?" "Yes." Shen Luan lowered her gaze, focused on her skirt, planning to dart past him the moment he moved aside. However, Qin Gu showed no intention of yielding, standing resolutely in her way. "The last time I saw you in the manor, I was puzzled as to why you turned and left upon noticing me. I have been pondering what I might have done to displease you. No, my lord, you are overthinking it. Perhaps last time. I simply did not notice your presence." "Oh?" Qin Ji's voice suddenly deepened. "Then why does Miss Shun not raise her head?" Shun Luan. What does it matter to him whether she raises her head or not? Even without lifting her gaze, Shun Luan felt as though she were nearing an end. Her eyes fell upon Qin Ji's hands, which hung at his sides. Those hands, with their distinct knuckles, were broad and sturdy. An inexplicable unease washed over Shun Luan. She was acutely aware of the warmth emanating from his palms as they gripped her waist forcefully. "I'm going to die." Shun Luan abruptly averted her gaze, feeling as though the air she breathed was scalding, her fingertips trembling incessantly within her sleeves. "Miss Shen?" Qin Gu suddenly caught sight of Shen Luan's ears. Delicate and exquisite, yet at that moment, the tips appeared as if they might bleed, flushed to near transparency. "As this, because of me?" Qin Ji's eyes widened gradually, as if something deep within him was breaking free. However, before long, Shun Luan lifted her head, her expression oddly serene. "My lord, I wish to take a stroll by the lake. Might I trouble you for a favor?" Shun Luan's voice was cool. Were it not for her still crimson ears, one would scarcely distinguish her from her usual self. Qin Gu felt a flicker of interest in his heart. What a coincidence. I too am headed to the lake to find Shu Shu. Perhaps we could go together. It would be nice to have company. Shun Luan. Did not my lord just come from the lakeside? Yes, but I suddenly remembered something I must discuss with Shu Shu. Let us go. It is just ahead. She has been thinking of you all day and is quite thrilled to know you would be here today. She was just looking for you. Qin Gu spoke with ease, offering Shun Luan a faint smile. At that moment, Shun Luan found herself at a loss for words to refuse. Knowing that Qin Shu was searching for her, she could only manage a smile in response as they walked together toward the lakeside. After all, it was not far. Upon reflection, Shun Luan realized that she had scarcely spent any time alone with Qin Ji in her past life. Whenever she encountered him, Qin Shu was almost always present. After her marriage, the opportunities to see him had dwindled further. A gentle breeze wafted across the lake, ruffling Shun Luan's hair. She tucked her strands behind her ear, her gaze inadvertently brushing against Qin Ji's hands. And once again, her breath grew heavy. What is happening to me? Why can I not bear to look at Qin Ji's hands? Just a glance conjured scenes in her mind that made her heart race. As if tiny ants were gnawing at her heart, an anxiousness gnawing at her very bones. Shun Luan hurriedly took a deep breath and redirected her gaze to the distance, attempting to calm her tumultuous emotions. "The last time I brought Shu Shu a set of exquisite white jade rings. Have you seen them, Miss Shin?" "I have seen them. Shu Shu showed them to me. They are indeed breathtakingly exquisite, crafted with remarkable skill. And do you like them?" Shun Luan lifted her gaze to meet his, her eyes filled with curiosity. Qin Gu cleared his throat softly. "I happened to come across those rings and had Xiao Wu purchase them. However, he misheard and brought back 2.1 has already been delivered to Shu Shu, and the other would be a waste to leave with me. If you like it, I shall have someone deliver it to you." As a token of novelty. Point 2? Shun Luan blinked in surprise. She had seen that ring in her past life, and thus her astonishment and admiration were somewhat dulled upon this encounter. However, she had never heard of there being two sets of the exquisite white jade rings. Shu Shu only had one. After all, Chapter 39. I feel it is insufficient. Yes, two, identical in every way. Shu Shu likely would not want another, lest she find out and tease me for my extravagant spending. Qin Ji's smile was exceptionally gentle. Might Miss Shun assist me with this little task? Shun Luan felt unable to help them. Why, lord? Why not gift it to another lady of your household? Those white jade rings are of great value. How could I accept such a gift without cause? Consider it a token of gratitude for the sweet soup you prepared for me last time. Shen Luan's smile faltered. She had merely prepared it for her family, and now it seemed to have transformed into a gift for him. My lord, did you not write me a poem in return? That is already more than sufficient. I find it insufficient. Qinggu spoke with conviction. Our family motto in the Guangyang Marquisate is that one must repay kindness with gratitude. Having partaken of your sweet soup, I must express my appreciation in some manner. Those few words hardly suffice. Shen Luan was rendered speechless. I appreciate your kindness, my lord, but Miss Xian is so understanding. Surely, you would not refuse me, would you? Such an embarrassing affair. I can only turn to you, as I hardly know anyone else. Shen Luan's brows furrowed slightly. This was indeed true. In her past life, Qinggu had achieved great merit in quelling the chaos and had risen to prominence in the Grand Commander's office. Drawing the envy of all literati and officials at that time, Qinggu had not yet taken a wife, making him a sought-after figure, the object of many girls' affections. Yet for reasons unknown, Qinggu had shown little interest in such matters. Countless infatuated maidens could circle the city walls, yet none had been known to draw close to him. Consequently, Chao Jin had set her sights on herself. Shen Luan's gaze grew clear. Indeed, how could she allow herself to be led astray by unnecessary emotions? My lord, regarding this matter, Luan. Qin Shu's exuberant voice interrupted Shen Luan's words. Turning to look, she saw Qin Shu running toward them. Her skirts lifted. Luan. How wonderful, at last, I have found you. Qin Shu embraced Shen Luan, her face brimming with joy as she clasped her hand. I had not intended to come today, but upon hearing you would be here, I simply could not miss it. Where were you just now? I have been searching for you for ages. I was just walking ahead with Mother. How fortunate to see you. I notice there are numerous amusing attractions here. Let us go enjoy them together. There are also several games with prizes. Let us bring my brother along to help us win some. Shen Luan's heart sank. Just as she was about to voice her opinion, she heard Qinggu readily agree. What difficulty is there? You may have whatever you wish, Shen Luan. Would it be too much to ask for you to leave? Qin Shu believed that with her brother by Shen Luan's side, no one would dare to cause trouble. She had heard of the incident where Shen Luan had been bullied, which had infuriated her. Noticing that Luan's mood seemed less than ideal, it seemed she had not yet adjusted. Luan, there is archery over there, and they have bows for women. Let us try our hand at it. The Guangyang Marquisate was a family of martial arts, and Qin Shu had been influenced by this from a young age. She had made some achievements in horseback riding and archery, and among women, she was certainly not timid. The bows for women were lighter and easier to draw, and Qin Shu eagerly donned protective gear. Selecting a bow to aim, Shen Luan stood beside her, cheering her on. Qin Shu drew back her bow with all her might, her arrow only slightly missing the bullseye. Shu, how impressive! Qin Shu tossed her hair back, raising an eyebrow at Shen Luan, eliciting a peal of laughter from her like silver bells. Qinggu stood beside Shen Luan and quietly asked, Miss Shen, would you not care to give it a try? Chapter 40. A stroke of luck. Shen Luan politely declined. I have never played with a bow before. I would much rather watch Shu shoot. It is not difficult at all. It merely requires practice. If you wish to learn, it is quite easy to as he spoke. He summoned someone to bring over a set of protective gear. Shen Luan was taken aback. She had not expressed any desire to learn. Why was Qinggu taking it upon himself to teach her? Just try it. You may well possess more talent than Qin Shu. Shen Luan, in a daze, donned the protective gear as Qinggu began to instruct her on how to hold the bow. Place your hand here. Qinggu grasped the bow and then released it, indicating for Shen Luan to take his previous position. As her hand rested there, the lingering warmth instantly spread from her palm, leaving her breathless. Biting her lip lightly, Qin Ji's voice became somewhat distant, and her eyes could only follow his hand, chasing back and forth, amplifying her feelings of anxiety, causing her to weaken at the waist. The arrow rests here. Draw back, aim, and release. Seeing this, Qin Shu was quite surprised. Has my brother changed his ways today? When he taught me archery, he was not so gentle. He would throw the bow in front of me and smack my hand with the fletching whenever I made a mistake. It seemed her brother was quite considerate in public, aware that Luan was her good friend. Qin Shu felt reassured. Luan, my brother is excellent at horseback riding and archery. Just let him teach you. If you do not learn, You can hold him accountable. Shen Luan felt like throwing the bow away. Did she really appear so eager to learn? I understand. I will give it a try. Shen Luan was drawn in by Qin Ji's hand. Her mind clouded, and she hurriedly moved to the archery position. Holding her breath, she focused intently, preparing to aim accurately. She mimicked Qin Shu's stance, carefully closing one eye and using the other to focus on the target. Her innocent and earnest demeanor charming Qin Gu, who watched nearby. Previously, he had perceived her as mild and reserved, perhaps overly gentle, but now she seemed to possess a newfound sharpness, appearing more vibrant and lively, making it difficult for him to look away. Noticing that Shen Luan's aim was slightly low, Qin Gu stepped forward and gently lifted her bow upward. Shen Luan's heart raced. His hand brushed close to hers, so near that she could feel the warmth radiating from his fingers, wrapping around her like a tendril. Shen Luan released her grip on the arrow, which soared forth with a resounding thwack. Striking the bullseye, I have always maintained that you possess a remarkable talent. Qin Ji's smile was gentle, devoid of the fearsome decisiveness that Shen Luan had come to associate with him. He seemed almost a different person. Shen Luan's heart fluttered like the quivering tail feathers of the arrow, emanating an unusual emotion that spread throughout her being. Before her coffin, she had worn a solemn expression, her eyes reflecting pain and regret as she expressed a hope to be considered in a future life. He had delicately placed a phoenix-gilded hairpin among her locks, having come specifically to escort her on her journey, showing no concern for the consequences that would follow after slaying Chao Jin. Shen Luan lowered her head, softly murmuring, "It was merely a coincidence, a stroke of good fortune, Luan. You are truly impressive. What coincidence? Why am I not afforded such luck, brother? Did you perhaps withhold some secrets while teaching me?" Qin Shu's bright voice rang with excitement as she playfully leaned on Shen Luan's shoulder, teasing Qin Gu. He tapped her lightly on the head with the feathered end of the arrow, chiding her for her lack of practice, yet she dared to accuse him of keeping secrets. "Please refrain from tapping my head with that. My hair is a mess." Qin Shu pouted, playfully complaining to Shen Luan, who smiled and patiently smoothed the strands caught by the feather, gently taming them. Qin Gu stood nearby, his tall figure harmoniously contrasting with the two petite girls. Chapter 41. Not to take what others favor, Miss Shen. You hit the bullseye just now. Here is your prize. Please accept it. A young servant presented a wooden doll, which Xian accepted and brought to Shen Luan. The doll, with a head nearly the same size as its body, was endearingly clumsy, adorned with starry brows and sharp eyes. Unmistakably, a boyd was painted in smoky blue attire with dark boots and a splendid golden black belt, exquisitely crafted. Qin Shu leaned forward, observing the doll with keen interest. "Brother, does this doll not bear an uncanny resemblance to you?" At her words, Shen Luan's hand trembled slightly. It seemed there truly was a hint of resemblance, particularly in the eyes and brows, if one overlooked the doll's round cheeks. Shen Luan thought to herself, what should I do if I find this somewhat amusing? No, I must restrain myself. Qin Gu, noticing her slight smile that she tried to suppress, felt puzzled. Could he genuinely bear any resemblance to such a round and clumsy figure? Qin Shu laughed heartily, convinced of her discerning it's too similar. Brother, you must indeed have a set of clothes like that, right? Was the creator of this doll inspired by you? Ha ha ha, her laughter echoed. Oblivious to Shen Luan's discomfort with the doll now in her possession. If the doll resembled Qin Gu, was the person who set this prize truly malicious? Since Shu pointed out the similarity, perhaps I shall bestow this scalding object upon the young lord. In an instant, Shen Luan made her decision, intending to pass this troublesome item along. Qin Gu discerned the urgency in her eyes, stifling a laugh while maintaining a serious demeanor. This prize, bestowed upon Miss Shun, is of great value. How could I accept it so readily? It is not of great worth, Shen Luan insisted, exasperated. What value does a wooden doll hold? This will not do. A gentleman does not take what others cherish. Though the Qin family is known for martial prowess, we understand principles of propriety. Shen Luan felt a sense of futility. How could she demonstrate any fondness for the doll? Oh, Luan, my brother has no interest in such things. You should keep it. If he ever displeases you, you can take out your frustrations on this doll, which would be quite effective. I want one for myself. 2. Then, I do not wish to accept yours. I must win one through my own merit. Shen Luan took a deep breath, determined not to relinquish the doll. Qin Shu, unable to grasp the complexity of Xin Luan's feelings, continued to scheme. What a pity it would be if only I had a doll resembling Alwan. I would certainly help you win it. Nearby, the young servant interjected. My lady wishes for a girl-less wooden doll? I recall that among the prizes for the archery contest, there indeed exists a girl-s wooden doll, exquisitely carved and painted. Qinggu immediately looked around. Where is the venue for the men's archery contest? Just over there, not far. A short walk will take you there. Qingji's expression softened. Shall we not go and take a look? You must be growing weary. Qin Shu began to remove her protective gear. Genuinely fatigued from the exertion of drawing the bow, Alwan, let us go see. If that doll is still there, I shall have my brother win it for you to complete your pair. Her words were casual, devoid of any romantic undertones, for in her previous life, Shen Luan would have harbored no thoughts on such matters. However, at that moment, she found it impossible not to think. Why should they seek to complete a pair? Did Qinggu have nothing to say in response to Qin Shu's playful banter? What if someone overheard and it jeopardized his prospects for marriage? Yet, Shen Luan suddenly recalled that in her past life, Qin Shu had always been so unabashedly candid. Qinggu never once chastised her. He simply smiled amiably, accompanying them with unyielding patience. Thus, in his previous life, had he felt the same way towards her. Lost in thought, Shen Luan allowed Xian to assist her in removing her protective gear while being led by Qin Shu toward the men's archery venue. Her mind a whirlwind, unaware that she still clutched the endearing doll in her hands. Qinggu, striding ahead, hoped fervently that no one would snatch away the girl-s doll. Otherwise, he would have to intervene. Chapter 42. Fearless of anyone, the atmosphere at the men's archery venue was far more lively than that of the women's. The boys, with their carefree and unrestrained spirits, gathered together, laughing and creating a vibrant ambience. Moreover, their contest attracted the attention of many girls, who would not wish to impress the ladies. After all, among them might be a future bride, prompting many boys to muster their utmost efforts. Wow, there are so many people. Is it really this interesting? Qin Shu exclaimed, pulling Shen Luan toward the prize display. Her eyes immediately spotted a beautiful girl-s wooden doll among the various prizes favored by boys. It stood out remarkably, and fortunately, it had not yet been claimed. Brother, it's still here. Hurry and win it back. Qin Shu's excitement drew the attention of nearby onlookers, curious to see what treasure was so significant. Just a wooden doll? Does the young lord truly desire that? A familiar acquaintance of Qinggu approached, jesting. The young lord's taste is quite discerning. Could there be something extraordinary about that doll? Perhaps I shall contest you for it. Before Qinggu could respond, a girl's voice piped up, Brother, I want that too. Please win it for me. Shen Luan turned her gaze to the source of the voice, spotting a little girl in a crimson dress. Yet, her eyes were fixed not on Shen Luan but rather on Qin Shu, her chin raised defiantly as if ready for a confrontation. Qin Shu? Not one to back down, retorted. How unfortunate for you. My brother has never lost an archery contest. That doll was my first choice, and I assure you he will claim it. How can you be so certain without having competed? The little girl shot back, Brother, I want that. Shen Luan, maintaining her composure, recalled a previous encounter. This girl was Wu Shuehua, the daughter of the general of loyalty and valor, who had always been at odds with Qin Shu. In her former life, Qin Shu had often confided her grievances to Shen Luan regarding their rivalry. As for the origins of their animosity, Qin Shu herself could scarcely articulate it. Perhaps it was simply a matter of incompatible personalities. Standing beside Wu Shuehua was her brother, Wu Wei, who later became a trusted aide to Qinggu, aiding him in restoring order and receiving noble titles. Shen Luan observed Wu Wei with curiosity, only to find his gaze swiftly avert from hers, an awkwardness that deepened her intrigue. Having lived another life, Shen Luan had gained some insight. Wu Wei's obvious attempt to evade her gaze, coupled with his slightly flushed cheeks, sparked a subtle realization within her. It was hardly surprising that Shen Yu harbored jealousy towards her, not solely due to Shen Luan's status, but also her beauty. Shen Luan possessed a naturally delicate oval face, radiant eyes and pearly teeth, her gaze as expressive as if imbued with spring water, her lips naturally rosy, and her elegantly arched brows enhancing her allure, making her utterly enchanting. Previously, her timid nature had led her to keep her head bowed, wishing to evade attention. Yet now, Shen Luan exuded grace and composure, her quiet confidence amplifying her beauty, making it seem almost luminescent. Shuer, if you truly desire a wooden doll, I shall ensure to procure several for you upon my return. Wu Wei gently suggested to Wu Shuehua, but his words fell on deaf ears. No, I want that one, brother. What are you afraid of? Your archery skills have even earned praise from the third prince of the palace. Surely you have confidence? Wu Shuehua challenged, turning to Qin Shu with an air of defiance. Dare you let your brother compete against mine? Whoever triumphs shall take it all, and there shall be no regrets. Let the contest commence. I have never feared anyone, not even my elder brother. Qin Shu resolutely accepted the challenge, as if she were the one eager to compete. After delivering her fierce words, she turned away, saying, Brother, the stage is yours. Chapter 43. A spectacle Shen Luan was amused by Qin Shu's antics, covering her lips with a delicate hand as laughter escaped her. Qin Shu's vivacious nature was utterly charming, eliciting involuntary smiles from those around her. Her laughter, akin to the first bloom of spring flowers, drew the attention of both Qin Gu and Wu Wei. Wu Wei, captivated, seemed momentarily lost in thought, recognizing her as the third young lady of the Shen family. He had heard mention of her from his sister, yet he had not anticipated her brilliance to be so striking. Noticing Wu Wei's rapt gaze, Qin Gu furrowed his brow slightly and stepped aside, as if inadvertently obscuring Wu Wei's line of sight. In that case, Brother Wu, please proceed, he said. Your Highness, regarding this matter, it was well known that the Wu family's martial prowess in archery and horsemanship was exceptional. However, opportunities to spar had been scarce. Now, fortune had smiled upon them. Having stated this, Qin Gu compelled Wu Wei to acquiesce, instructing his attendant to fetch his favored bow and arrows from the carriage. Meanwhile, Qin Gu approached the side to select a bow provided by the competition venue. News of their impending contest swiftly spread, and before long, a throng had gathered around the archery range, eager to witness the spectacle. The heir of the Marquis of Guangyang and the young general of the Wu family are to compete. What could have prompted this? Why the sudden decision to match their skills? Let the contest unfold. Who do you think will emerge victorious? That's hard to say. The young general's archery and horsemanship have garnered acclaim even within the palace, yet the Marquis's heir is no slouch. I've heard he has never been bested in such contests. This is bound to be thrilling. I wonder if there will be any stakes involved. It certainly warrants our wagering. What are you thinking? Would they compete without stakes? I can tell you, I've been here since dawn. The young general and the heir are squaring off precisely to seize the stakes. Is that true? What are the stakes? A circle of informed individuals gathered, building suspense before gesturing toward the platform. It is that, the wooden doll, the crowd. I'm not deceiving you. It's indeed that doll. The daughter of the Marquis of Guangyang caught sight of it at once.